Oh. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Planning and Zoning Public Hearing for Town South Windsor for Tuesday, January 11th, 2022. If everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'll turn to the secretary for the reading of the notice.
To be published in the Journal Inquirer Thursday, December 30th, 2021, and Thursday, January 6th, 2022, South Windsor Planning and Zoning Commission. Notice is hereby given that there will be a public hearing on Tuesday, January 11th, 2022 at 7 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall to consider the following. 1. Application 21-41P, Evergreen Walk LLC Multifamily Text Amendment. Request to amend specific requirements for multifamily residential use in the Buckland Gateway Development Zone, including Section 4.2.15, A.2.E, to increase the number of units permitted to 365 units and modify Section 4.2.15, A.2.C to modify the criteria for achieving the required 2-to-1 residential to commercial ratio for mixed-use developments within this zone, continued from November 30, 2021 and December 14, 2021. Number 2, application 21-42P, Evergreen Walk, LLC. Request to modify the Evergreen Walk General Plan and Development in accordance with Section 4.2.15, D.2, and a special exception to Section 4.2.15, D.1 for a 165-unit residential development for a portion of 151 Buckland Road within Evergreen Walk, known as Unit 7C, and begin approximately 2,000 feet west of Buckland Road and 1,000 feet north of Smith Street, Buckland Road Gateway Development Zone, continued from November 30, 2021 and December 14, 2021. Number 3, application 21-53P, Miller Heights Subdivision, request for a minor subdivision and a special exception to Section 3.2.2 of the zoning regulations and site plan approval for one interior lot on property located at 73 Miller Road, AA 30 zone. Number 4, application 21-55P, Maguire Road Associates LLC, doing business as Hartford Truck Equipment. Request for a zone change of 7.3 acres from rural residential RR zone to general commercial GC zone for property located at 452 King Street. To view this meeting, please tune into channel 16 if your provider is Cox Cable, or go to gmedia.swagit.com/live, LIVE. Copies of the application are on file in the office of the town clerk and/or planning department and online at https://www.southwindsor.ct.gov/planning-department/pages/planning-and-zoning-commission-applications. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard, and written comments by the public will be received by mail or email. Persons who may require an accommodation can contact staff Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. at 860-644-2511, extension 2329. Bart Pesaconis, Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you very much. Our order of business tonight will be first to hear from the applicants, then we will hear from town staff, then we will hear from members of the public, first those in favor, and then those who are against or have questions or comments, and then we will hear from commissioners. We do have a new member here, alternate Atif Quarishi. I'd like to welcome you to the commission and enjoy. Okay. Tonight, our first public hearing is application 21-41P, Evergreen Walk LLC. It is a continuation. If I could, before you start, if any members of the public do wish to come up and speak during the public comment, please provide your name and address for us, and there should be a sign-in sheet up on the podium. So, good evening. Please turn your microphone on, red button on, or button on the bottom.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, professional staff, and new member. Good luck. Enjoy. For the record, at the outset, a happy and healthy new year to everybody in your family since the last time we were here, just before the holidays. My name is Chris Smith. I'm a land use attorney at the law firm of Alter & Pearson, and I appear before you this evening representing Evergreen Walk, LLC. I would like to indicate for the record that we also have the members of our team that have been here for the first nights of public hearing. We have Mr. Lamson. Alan Lamson is here, Howard Rappaport, Maura Cochran, and Ron Bominger. And I'm not sure if our traffic, I don't see Steve here. Steve's not going to be able to make it. But I just wanted to indicate that those folks are here and can respond to any questions that you have. We did submit a summary. It was a brief summary of the presentation up to this point in time, and I believe that was provided to the Commission, and I was hoping to just kind of go through that as an overview. If you do have questions, obviously we're more than happy to take those at the outset, or we can do that after that summary. And but before I do that, Mr. Chairman, with your permission, Howard Rappaport, who again is the developer and owner of what is known as Tempo 1, and is the proposed developer of the multifamily residential community that is the subject of the second combination of applications concerning the general plan and the special exception that are before you this evening. So with your permission, Mr. Rappaport, again, would just like to address one item that came up at the last night of public hearing on December 14th.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Howard Rappaport with Continental Properties. For the record, I wanted to correct one item that we discussed last time. Upon questioning, I had responded that 32 of our proposed of our 88 one-bedrooms would have a home office. That accurate number is 34, not 32. And I just wanted to make a couple of comments to provide just a little context, very, very briefly, on the home office. Given the smaller size of the home office than a traditional bedroom and the lack of a closet, we really see it as a dysfunctional space for a bedroom. But we acknowledge that we cannot control how our residents use the home office. But our real-world experience at Tempo is actually that 36% of the second bedrooms are not used as a bedroom per se. We have 100 two-bedrooms at Tempo. 36 of them are not being used as a bedroom. 16 of the 100 two-bedrooms are rented by one-occupant households. 20 of the 100 two-bedrooms are rented by two-occupant households who don't use the second bedroom as a bedroom. Conventionally, they're using it for a home office, a small gym, storage, or some other use. And so to the extent that we may wind up with some residents who may use the home office as a second bedroom, our real-world experience at Tempo is that will be more than offset by the number of people who use the second bedroom for non-bedroom uses. So I just wanted to provide some context, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, again, Chris Smith for the record. We did prepare a summary of our presentation up to this point in time for the Commission. It has extended over a couple of nights, And I know that we didn't have everybody here at that point in time. But again, what's before you this evening is a proposed 165-unit multifamily residential community. I'll go through some of the highlights of that community in a moment. To get there, relative to the subject property known as Unit C located in Evergreen Walk, we do need a zone text amendment. So we have 3 applications that are before you this evening. The first is a zone text amendment, and the second is a proposed amendment to the general plan for Evergreen Walk. And then the third is a special exception application for the use, for the multifamily use of Unit 6 with Unit 7C within Evergreen Walk, and that's provided under the gateway zoning regulations. Whenever you have a multifamily use, it's subject to a special exception review and approval. If this were to be approved within the Commission's discretion, this proposal, then we would return, or Mr. Rappaport would return with a site plan, a specific site plan for the proposal. And again, it's a 165-unit residential community. I'm just going to refer to it, this little summary that we did. It's just a 2-pager. And just to run through the highlights or the high points, we respectfully submit to the Commission that a multifamily use is the highest and best use for Unit 7C in Evergreen Walk. I think everyone realizes that retail in that location down in the back is not really feasible because of the location, and office is not feasible currently or in the foreseeable future due to COVID and its effects on the economy and way of doing business. So Mr. Rappaport, who has been very successful with Tempo 1 with the multifamily residential community there, firmly believes that there is an existing demand and need for multifamily residential housing with an affordable component, which both my client, Evergreen Walk, and Mr. Rappaport have agreed to include in this proposal if the Commission were to see fit to approve it. And respectfully submit to the Commission that this proposal does provide additional housing opportunities, not only with the multifamily component, rental component, but also with the affordable component for the citizens of South Windsor. As you heard and is provided in the reports that have been submitted, the infrastructure that is in place can accommodate the utilities and traffic associated with the proposal. We remind the Commission that there are actually less traffic impacts associated with the proposed residential use when compared to the previously approved commercial uses at Unit 7C, and that was part of the report from Mr. Mitchell. And I respectfully point out that we haven't had any opposition to the proposal. Hopefully that remains through this public hearing night. And we respectfully submit that that's in part because there haven't been any there are no negative impacts to the neighboring properties concerning traffic, noise, view sheds, and property values as provided by the Commission's regulations and your criteria for the special exception review and approval. Now, as to the proposal, the residential community involves a 115 unique cottage-style units and 2-story structures with, again, direct entry. And as Mr. Rappaport testified earlier in the public hearing, this is different from any other existing housing option in South Windsor and for the most part in the Hartford region. There's also included 88 units that are ADA adaptable, or 88 of the units are ADA adaptable. 38 of these are located in a 4-story building that includes an elevator for what we understand is the first non-age restricted rental housing opportunity with an elevator in South Windsor. And this directly addresses the residents that will live there who have ADA accessibility challenges. As you're aware, the Commission did ask us, my clients, to consider providing an affordable component, and Evergreen Walk and Mr. Rappaport have agreed to include a 10% component, so 17 of the proposed dwellings will be rented to individuals or families at the 80% median income level with a deed restriction for 40 years to ensure such. The site design has been designed to utilize and to connect to the existing walking trail at Evergreen Walk and to also utilize the pedestrian sidewalks within Evergreen Walk to nearby businesses. There's provision for bicycle racks, and we respectfully submit that with these aforementioned amenities, including the state-of-the-art clubhouse, that the residential community will be a signature community, and further enhance South Windsor's reputation. Economic or fiscal impacts, we did provide you with an analysis, an economic impact report. There'll be a net of approximately $400,000 during construction. We anticipate approximately $12.2 million in local business owners' income and local wages and salaries. Post-construction, annually, we estimate approximately $4.3 million in local business owners' income, including businesses in Evergreen Walk and the Gateway Zone, and local wages and salaries. We respectfully submit that there's a minimum impact concerning the number of school-aged children when utilizing either SLAMs, and remember they did a recent report for the town that is part of the record of this proceeding and before the commission. SLAM's medium or high projection models for 2024 to 2025, and specifically the school-aged children associated with the proposed residential community will comprise less than 1%, or approximately, this is actually depending upon counting, it's 2/3 of 1%, or 0.67% of the total school population in the town, so less than 1%. In addition, the school-aged children living within the proposed residential community can be accommodated by the school system. It's my understanding, I know that we did have communication with the BOE superintendent, and I don't believe that there's been any indication that there's any issues with servicing the children from this community from the Board of Ed that I'm aware of. And any costs associated with educating the community's children will be more than offset by the tax revenue to be generated. In other words, we respectfully submit that the community will more than pay for educating its children, and the school system can accommodate the community's children. And in conclusion, we respectfully submit that the proposal involves what we believe is an exciting residential community that provides a unique housing product with a number of significant attributes, including an affordable housing opportunity component for the citizens of South Windsor. The proposed residential community will complement the existing uses within the Evergreen Walk community. In particular, it will support the shops at Evergreen Walk and other local businesses such as restaurants. The proposed residential community, I'd like to respectfully submit, has not had any opposition up to this point in time, and we're not aware of any. The proposal will have a substantial net economic benefit to the town, even when factoring in the community's projected school-aged children. And finally, the proposed residential community we respectfully submit that it satisfies the applicable criteria provided by your regulations for amending the general plan and for the special exception that's before you this evening. And as to the zone text amendment, I would like to point out that Mr. Lamson did submit a slight modification to that to address some of the comments that we did hear from the commission. And if you do have any questions, we can certainly respond to that this evening as well. That was submitted to the commission. I believe that you may have a copy of it. And in closing, I would respectfully, on behalf of the team, thank you for the opportunity to present this exciting residential community to you during this hearing process. And we respectfully request that you act favorably upon the 3 applications that are before you this evening. And with that, thank you very much again for myself and on behalf of the team. And we're more than willing to respond to any questions that you have at this point.
Okay, thank you very much. When we get to commissioners, then we'll get the questions out there. At this time, I'll turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Light.
Just briefly, you were given a revised text amendment. Just want to bring that to your attention. Again, the intent with this text amendment is that once a project like this were approved in Evergreen Walk, there would be no more opportunity to come back for any kind of 2-to-1 ratio of residential to commercial within the Evergreen Walk project itself. So the rewrite of the text amendment does ensure that by the square footages that are required to be 1-to-1 square footages. Secondly, I was asked by the commission to circle back with Superintendent Carter regarding the school-age children. She and I did have a brief conversation. She referred me back to her letter as to, the status of the schools and the populations, and she also referred me to the SLAM report, which we did have at the commission's meeting the last time. She doesn't really, want to weigh in on whether or not commission should be approving things that produce school-age children. That's your policy, not theirs. But she, did indicate that based on the numbers here, is their capacity to absorb, they will educate whatever children get generated out of this project, was how she put it to me. I think the numbers that were presented were kind of matched pretty good with the SLAM report. At any given time, you're off a couple students, depending on how many are going at any given time out of these projects. But I think the SLAM report and the numbers prepared by Ms. Cochran reflected pretty similarly what we can anticipate coming out of the project.
Okay, thank you. We'll turn to our town engineer, Jeff Doolittle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no additional comments on this
Okay.
application.
Thank you. So at this time, I'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? Please step forward. Is there anyone who would like to speak in? Are you stepping forward in favor? John? Okay. Anyone else in favor? Okay. Is there anyone who is against or have questions or concerns they'd like to voice? Please step forward.
Good evening. For the record, John Holozak, Cody Circle. I won't reiterate my comments about the favorable aspects of this application, which it does provide some buffering, I think, to Smith Street, so that's a favorable thing. The presentation we heard in mid-December described luxury condos, and I haven't looked at the plans in detail, but one would think luxury condos would provide for indoor parking, for example, basement parking.
These are apartments.
I saw that in the plan. Finally, the analysis of the school-age children in reflecting upon the numbers that were presented. I believe the factor that was used for the cost of each school-age child was $16,000. And I researched this recently for a different reason, and pretty sure I came up with a number of $18,000 in the town records. So that might be something to check. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. John, did you sign in? Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak against or have questions or concerns they'd like to voice? Please step forward. Seeing and hearing none, I'll turn to commissioners. I'll turn to Commissioner Cavagnaro first, please.
Thank you. I have no additional concerns or questions at this time.
Okay, Commissioner Dexter?
No questions or concerns at this time.
Okay, Commissioner Wagner?
I have no questions or concerns. However, we have on a sheet of paper in front of us the, I think the final text that we're approving. I just want to make sure that, how do we make sure that that's what's in the record as opposed to the initial application?
So,
It's got all kinds of underlines and everything, so.
Yeah, I believe we can just reference it as the.
along with your approval condition sheet, which has the other affordable housing one, which should be in your packets as
Right,
well.
the January 3rd, 2022.
Great, thank you. I look forward to seeing this development.
Commissioner Foley?
I have no further comments.
Commissioner LeBlanc?
I have no further comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Viteri?
I also have no further comments or questions.
And Commissioner Quarishi?
I have no further comments either.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I do have some concerns about the way that this language is written, and it's all addressing the Evergreen Walk proposal. When Evergreen Walk is, if you want to say, half the street of the gateway zone. And one of my concerns is that it references a general plan, but there was also a general plan submitted for that side of the street. And I understand that there are, or is the unit number limit that's included. But I have an issue with a judge looking at that, and zoning laws are made to be fair to all applicants. Another applicant would just need to come in and say, okay, well, we have a general plan. We'd like to use that one, and we'd like to raise the cap for the units. In fairness, here's our application. And it doesn't address the current regulations as they are. It addresses the new regulations. And correct me if I'm wrong.
I think two things. I'll take a stab at this, Alan, if it's all right. I don't think it's, I think it covers the gateway zone, Mr. Chairman, so I do think it would address properties on west, on both sides of Buckland. More importantly, we were asked to try to draft something that would limit what we were proposing to the commission, so people wouldn't be able to utilize, would be constrained or would be restricted to the 2-to-1. And one of two ways we thought of dealing with that. One is with the cap, there has to be a text amendment anyways, and
Right.
the commission has discretion. I mean, we all know that if you don't like what's before you this evening, you can deny the text amendment, and if the cap doesn't get increased, then the special exception is denied. So if someone else came in with another application on another property on the other side of the road, they would have to have a text amendment similar to ours to increase the density for multifamily units. And if the commission didn't like what it saw, the commission could say, we're not going to approve this text amendment to increase beyond what's there today. So the 2-to-1, you don't even get to the 2-to-1. But to address the 2-to-1 for you, we tried to limit the general plan, the use of the general plan to compare, to come up with the 2-to-1 ratio, right? There has to be something. Where do you get, where's the commercial that's going to offset the residential in the 2-to-1? And historically, it's been done on a general plan by general plan basis. You've had a couple of general plans that have been approved. You had one from, I believe, last June, which is why we picked June. And within the gateway zone, it just happens to be the Costco, and there's another one as well, I believe, but just for purposes of explanation. And then we came up with an outer date of this March, so it could include this proposal. So the window for being able to utilize a general plan to even come up with the 2-to-1, Mr. Chairman, with a specific proposal, with a general plan amendment, would be limited to any general plan that was approved during that window from June of last year to March of this year. And I've seen text amendments throughout the state where you see it in the state statutes, anything that happens before such and such a date. And that's how you kind of, put caps, or you can control, not caps, but in this case it is a cap, you would be able to cap the use of the general plan to just that window, as opposed to naming properties or units, in this case at Evergreen Walk, or properties across the street or whatever. So it would only apply, again, you would have two things. If somebody came in and wanted to use it for residential in the gateway zone, there's a restriction on the number of units in the gateway zone, and it would be what's out there today and what you've approved today, up to today. And if you do to improve our proposal, it would include that. So if anybody came in, they would need the text amendment to increase the cap, and it would be limited to a general plan for comparison. They would have to show you a general plan where they could only use the commercial numbers for a general plan approved within this window. So that's why, we tried to tighten it up as best we could to address the comments that we had from the commission. How could we limit the text amendment that's before you to address those concerns, and legitimate concerns. But again, I think the best protection for the commission is anybody would like to do more residential in the gateway zone, they have to come in and ask you to increase the cap. It's a text amendment. It's almost like a zone change. And if you don't like the proposal for that particular location where they want to utilize that, you just say no to it. And I'm not going to opine for your, on behalf of your council, but I think it's pretty clear in Connecticut that if it's a rare thing indeed if a trial court judge is going to reverse a denial of a zone change request or a text amendment from a planning and zoning commission in this state. I'm only aware of it happening, quite frankly, I think once, is that I'm aware of. It may have happened recently, but in the last, it just doesn't happen. So you really have, I usually tell clients, and I certainly have told this one, and I think Mr. Rappaport is aware of it too, that you have extremely broad discretion when reviewing a text amendment. So that's your first protection. But again, here, Alan and myself, we spent some time in working with Michelle and, just running things by Michelle, but we came up with hopefully something that you like, and that is limiting the general plan to this window. That's why that's there.
Okay.
But thank you for asking, because we just submitted this last week, and just, it's a good thing we had an opportunity to clarify it. I don't know, Alan, if you have anything further on that, or?
And the commission does appreciate all the clarification. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, commissioners, is there anything else on the public hearing that you would like to bring forward? Questions, comments? Town staff? The applicant's all set?
Thank you very much. Thank you
Okay,
again.
then we will close. Just want to make sure I get the right one. We'll close the public hearing for application 21-41P. And we will, that's on our agenda to discuss later tonight. Our next application is application 21-42P, Evergreen Walk LLC, which is the general plan of development and the special exception. Commissioner Smith, applicant Smith, this is you. This is the second one.
This is general plan now we're talking about.
Sorry?
Talking about the general plan now.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, for the record, I thought we had incorporated the one public hearing, so my comments, if we can, the summary statement, which I won't walk through again, if that can be incorporated into this record, if it's not automatically already. Again, I apologize. I thought we had incorporated both applications into one public hearing. So our comments that we went through already up to this point in time, Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully request that they be incorporated and submitted respectfully to the commission concerning the second application.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I'm fine with that, Chris.
Okay.
I'll
No
turn
staff
to
comments.
town staff.
No staff.
All set. And I'll turn to the public. Is there anyone that would like to talk about application 21-42P, Evergreen Walk, for the general plan? Hearing and seeing none, we'll turn to commissioners. Commissioner Quarishi?
No comments or questions.
Okay. Commissioner Viteri,
No further comment, no.
Commissioner LeBlanc,
No further comment, thank you.
Commissioner Foley,
No further comment.
Commissioner Commissioner Wagner,
No further comment?
Commissioner Dexter,
Further comments?
Commissioner Cavagnero.
No further comment.
Okay, and I have no further comment. Any reason to keep the public hearing open? Hearing and seeing none, we'll close the public hearing for application 21-42P. And we'll move on to our next public hearing, which is application 21-53P, Miller Heights Subdivision. Do we have someone here to represent the applicant? This,
Caitlin's getting it.
this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Ben Wheeler from Design Professionals, located here in South Windsor, licensed landscape architect in the state of Connecticut. As you're getting settled there, handed to Michelle Light to pass out to you just copies of what I'm going to be showing on the screen behind you so you can save your necks a little bit this evening. I have with me Mr. Daniel Jameson, licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut, who assisted with the preparation of the plans and the drainage calculations for this project. And also Mr. John Jakes of Jakes Construction, LLC, who is the applicant and the owner of the property. I'm sure all of you know Mr. Jakes has been in town as a home builder for many, many years and has a great reputation of building fine home products throughout South Windsor. Bear with me one moment here. So again, the image that is on the screen behind you, you have in front of you. I will keep my presentation brief and open it up to any questions, but this is a proposal located at 73 Miller Road, which is a 4.52 acre parcel in the AA 30 residential zone. On the property currently, there's an existing house up in this area here, close to Miller Road, which is just under 1,300 square feet. It's a house that is not in the greatest of condition, that was built back in 1920 according to assessor records. That house will be raised in order to accommodate the proposal, which is for 2 lots and 2 new houses. The western lot over here will be an interior lot, as is allowed in the regulations, section 3.2.2 of the zoning regulations. That lot area will be 2.128 acres, of which 83,433 square feet is exclusive of the access way. So in other words, the bigger portion of the property past where the narrow portion to get back to the main part of the lot. As you know in your regulations, the area exclusive of the access way needs to be double the size of the normal lot in the AA 30 zone, which would be, that means that would be required to be 60,000 square feet. So at over 83,000 square feet, this lot has more than 150% of the required size of your lot in the AA 30 zone. The eastern lot will be a very similar size, slightly larger at 2.391 acres, which is almost 3.5 times the size of the 30,000 square feet that is required in this zone. So obviously 2 very large lots compared to the surrounding AA 30 lots in this zone. Both lots meet all of the other dimensional requirements of the zone, such as lot frontage, setbacks, etc., as is pointed out in the plans and the zoning data blocks. In fact, just to point out one, that they far exceed those requirements, especially the lot coverage, which we calculate as approximately 2.8% and 2.5% respectively, when 15% is allowed. Again, just a factor of how large these lots are. Both proposed houses, as you can see on the plans, will be set further away from Miller Road than the existing houses on either side, and also the existing house on the lot. And that is to be compatible with each other. Obviously, the rear lot, the interior lot has to be set back that far in order to take advantage of the larger portion of the property. The eastern lot will be set back, and they will face each other to be compatible and also to be respectful of the existing houses on Miller Road. And in addition to that, about in this location here on the plan, there's a pretty significant oak tree. And you have a picture from Google Street View in your packet, which I believe was taken in, yes, September of 2019. So this is the existing house right here, which will be raised. And then this is the existing oak tree. Somewhat blends in with the vines and stuff that are growing on it, but it is a very large, significant oak tree, a specimen tree that Mr. Jakes wishes to preserve, clean up, all the vines and stuff on it. But in order to preserve that, that's another reason why the houses will be set back further from Miller Road. And I do want to point out that on the plans currently in front of you, we do not note that tree will be preserved, but we will make a note on the final plan, so we would accept a condition of approval that every effort be made to preserve that tree in accordance with the plans. Going back to the site plan, there will be a shared curb cut on Miller Road towards the western edge of the frontage on Miller Road, basically right where the existing house, in front of where the existing house is. And then that will split into two separate private driveways serving each house. We did examine sightline in this area because, as you probably know, if you drive down Miller Road regularly, there is a ridge and a high point right in front of this lot. It's just to the east of the driveway here, but we did examine sightline based on the proposed driveway, the proposed curb cut location, and the sightline does meet the regulations for residential driveways that's required in South Windsor. As far as landscaping is concerned, we are proposing 2 street trees in front of the eastern lot, as shown on the plans here and on the rendering here, in order to meet the requirements of the subdivision regulations. Existing drainage patterns, basically that same ridge that's on Miller Road carries through the site, so the eastern lot essentially drains to the east and the western lot drains to the west, and those existing drainage patterns will remain intact with this proposal. We are proposing 2 rain gardens, one for each lot to the south of each of the proposed houses in order to collect runoff from the proposed development and to provide water quality treatment and stormwater attenuation. We did receive comments from Mr. Doolittle on the proposed plans that notes be added to the plans and the grading be revised slightly, basically to direct all the roof runoff and the driveway areas in front of the garages towards those rain gardens to make sure they intercept as much of the impervious runoff as possible. And in discussions with him, we believe we can accommodate that request within the final plans, and obviously we will accept that as a condition of approval should you see fit to approve this application. This stormwater treatment, the stormwater design that was prepared by Mr. Jameson is consistent with other small subdivisions that have been approved recently in town by this commission, such as the Nevers Ridge subdivision on Nevers Road just around the corner from this proposed subdivision, and the Davis subdivision on Pleasant Valley Road, which was approved just last year. The proposed houses will be served by underground utilities. We are proposing, because the utility poles are on the north side of Miller Road, the plans do show a new utility pole to run electric service across Miller Road, but then once it gets onto the properties, will be run underground to serve each of the house. Natural gas and public sewer are available in the street frontage of Miller Road and will serve these houses. However, public water is not available. It's farther than 200 feet from the property along the frontage of Miller Road, so therefore each of the houses will be served by their own individual private wells. Mr. Jakes obtained the services of Mr. Ian Cole, who is a soil scientist in Connecticut, who reviewed the site for any regulated wetlands or watercourses, and he did not find any. So therefore, this proposal was not subject to the review of the Inland Wetlands Agency Conservation Commission. As you know, since we are proposing an interior lot with this application, it does meet the requirements, or does need to meet the requirements for a special exception, because it is also a special exception application. We did submit with the application a written narrative outlining how we believe that this application does meet each of the 14 criteria that's spelled out in the zoning regulations. I'm not going to go over those each individually since we did provide the written narrative, but just to point out, obviously, because we are taking an existing house of less than ideal condition that is over 100 years old, and replacing it with 2 new houses of higher quality, we certainly believe that this proposal is compatible with the neighborhood and will help to preserve and increase home values in the area. So with that, like I said, I tried to keep it as brief as I can. At the appropriate time, we're available for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we'll turn to our town staff, our Director of Planning, Michelle Light.
Thank you. So this is a request for a minor subdivision and special exception to section 3.22 of the zoning regulations and site plan approval for one interior lot and redevelopment of the existing frontage lot on property located at 73 Miller Road, AA30 zone. Lot requirements for an AA30 zone lot is 30,000 square feet with 150 feet of frontage. Applicants proposing to remove existing house and then subdivide the land to create one interior lot. The lots will be 2+ acres, both of them 2.12 and 2.39 respectively. They're meeting the requirements of the interior lot, which is a minimum of 60,000 square feet with 225 feet of minimum width parallel to the street. They're proposing a lot of 83,433 square feet with 345 feet of width. The setbacks for an interior lot are subjective. They're applying a 50-foot setback, which is appropriate in this zone. Miller Road is considered a minor arterial road, therefore a shared driveway is required. They're showing that in accordance with the subdivision regulations, then splitting off into separate driveways. The fire marshal has reviewed the plans and is satisfied with the emergency access provisions for driveways. We do require them to be wider once they get past 300 feet, and these are less than 300 feet in width, so he was not concerned with that. I did make a recommendation of a sidewalk, but I'm in error in that there are no sidewalks in the area, nor does this show up on our plan for sidewalks, so I would not be recommending a sidewalk in that area. The interior lot, as well as the frontage lot, will be serviced by public sewers and well water. WPCA approval will be required for the connection. There are no regulated wetlands on the lots, so wetlands approval is not required. Erosion measures for the individual house lots will be addressed at the time of the individual building permits. There are existing trees on the property. It's a pretty much a deciduous tree line throughout the whole property. The house on lot number 1, for example, will be about 100 feet from the rear property line. And currently there are deciduous trees. Since that is the special exception interior lot, the commission may want to consider adding some screening materials, evergreen trees, either between lots 1 and 2 or to the rear of lot 1. I did have neighbors on the other property asking about it. I don't know how visible, but again, they are deciduous trees along that back property line. For lot number 1, again, being the interior lot, the approved location of the house, garage, and driveway are an integral part of the special exception approval. Any modifications other than staff-approved minor modifications will require further approval from this commission. If this application approved, the planning department has no additional modifications to request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll turn to our town engineer, Jeff Doolittle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just three little comments. As Ben said, I asked that they put a note on the plans and show the grading so that the water from the houses and most of the driveway near the house goes to the rain garden, so it does effectively reduce stormwater runoff. Asked them to show proposed invert elevation for the sanitary sewer laterals of both houses, and I suggested they narrow the median slightly between the driveways at the street, so the driveway width at the street is only about 24, 26 feet wide. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we'll turn to the public. Is there anyone who would like to speak on behalf of this application? Please step forward. Anyone? Hearing and seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak against or have questions or concerns they'd like to voice? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, we'll turn to commissioners. Commissioner Cavagnaro.
All right, thank you. I have just one concern with this, or a question or clarification. So I'm looking at, obviously, the site, and I know that Miller Road from experience isn't the most flattest. I have friends that live in the neighborhood, and when leaving their houses, I'll back up on the driveway, and I can look down west. I can see the road just fine and oncoming cars. I look towards the east side, and there's a crest above. There's the hill. I cannot see any oncoming cars, and I see the driveway is fairly close to one of the houses where backing up you can only see from one direction. I know reading through the letter that you sent us that there's no hazards with this application. I just want to clarify and ask if this was one of the concerns that was on your radar for this application, whether backing up from the two driveways, if you can see from both east and west of Miller Road. Because in my opinion, I honestly do feel that is a concern if you can only see from one direction of the road and you can't see any potential oncoming cars. That's just a quick question I have.
Sure. Very good question. As I mentioned, we did analyze the site distance based on DOT requirements where you're set back 15 feet from the edge of the traveled way and looking in both directions at an object, that's at the appropriate height and from the observation of the appropriate height. And as I mentioned, we did find that there is enough sight distance in both directions, looking to the west and looking to the east, to meet the 200 feet requirement for residential driveways in the regulations.
All right, thank you. I have no further comments.
Commissioner Dexter.
Just a couple of little things. When you're up at the houses and you're looking down toward Miller, is there any downward slope to Miller, or is it pretty straight ahead? I can't quite tell by this.
From the proposed houses themselves?
Yeah, if you're,
Yeah.
Up at the houses. I'm just wondering about flow of water down to the street. I know
Right.
you've addressed
Yeah, the proposed houses will be up slightly higher from Miller Road. It's not a significant slope downward towards Miller Road.
Okay.
The greater slope is to the east and the west. So yeah, it's pretty consistent with the grade of the road as it travels back through there.
Okay, thank you, Ben. And then my other question is, just looking at this aerial view, around the houses, you continue to show all the trees, which is lovely, but of course, the homeowner has a right to cut those down. And if they were to all be cut down at some point, because this happened in my own backyard, cut them all down. Can we request at this time that there be some provision for screening behind, say, for example, Brightman, or the back of the houses on Miller, or is that anything you've talked about?
Just a comment, your regulations for interior lots do allow you to look for screening, so.
Okay, then it was a good question.
In talking with the applicant, we'd be amenable to, rather than additional screening, how about a 20-foot wide conservation easement along the western and southern property line?
Okay.
That would obviously go on the plot plan and, you know, would have some recourse for any homeowner in the future that would clear trees. So at least protects that first 20 feet from both property lines.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wagner.
Thank you. I guess I've never seen in anything I've looked at a driveway entrance the way this one is designed, where you have two separate driveways that only join pretty much at the property line where you suddenly are in the town setback. So I guess I'd ask our town engineer, do we have any concern about the way that driveway will function right there at the end as it hits the street, and maybe two people coming out at the same time and that kind of thing?
No, this is commonly done. Obviously, if two people come out at the same time, they'd have to make sure they each can see. They can't both literally come out at the same time, so they'll have to take some turns. But that is a rare occurrence. You got two houses, and people are usually in different schedules. There's ample room for two cars to pass in and out of the street. As I said, this is commonly done. I think this was similar to what was just approved on the Pleasant Valley Road subdivision, Davis re-subdivision.
I mean, normally you have like a long common shared driveway. Here we got two driveways almost to the street.
Yeah, people don't like shared driveways. So the longer the shared driveway is, the more friction there is between the neighbors, is what we hear.
So yeah, I like that feature of it, and I'm glad that you don't have a problem with it, so that's all I had.
Okay, Commissioner Foley.
No comment.
Commissioner LeBlanc.
No further comment, thank you.
Commissioner Viteri.
Just a quick question. The existing structure right now at 73, is that occupied or that's vacant?
No, it is currently vacant and has been for some time. Yeah, it's been vacant for over a year.
Kind of looked like it because I live close by and I just wasn't sure. But other than that, no further comment.
Okay, Commissioner Quarishi.
So I know this happens quite a bit, but I don't know if it's a concern.
Excuse me, if you could move your microphone a little closer. Ideally, like 6 inches away.
Is this good?
Much better, thank you.
Okay, so I don't know if, because this is done commonly where houses go behind or in the backyards of other existing houses. Should we be concerned or ask the neighbors that live there, or is that something that we don't?
Are you addressing that to the town planner, or?
Yeah. Just to see
The
if,
neighbors were notified of this application, so they have an opportunity to come and ask any questions or express support or comments against it. So they were notified of the meeting, and if they choose not to come, then I have to assume they're okay with it.
okay, thank you.
Okay. And what's a different distance between the existing house to the west and, are those? On your plan, I'm not seeing lot 1 and lot 2 on your site plan. Is it? Which one's the one on the left?
Lot 1 is on the left.
Which plot 1 is on the left?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So the distance between the house in front of that and that house on lot 1? And while you're-
It's approximately 140 feet.
Okay. I saw on the first drawing that was on the aerials, or where the aerials shown, but you have the picture of the house that's going to be raised. There's abrevieties next to that. Are you saving those abrevieties?
Yes, I believe those are on the neighboring property.
Okay. Okay. Now, the house on Lot 1 seems a lot closer to the house that's in front of it. I believe you said 140,
Yes.
plus or minus?
Yep.
Is that, how much of that is cleared at this time? Is it just deciduous trees? Or,
On the subject property?
Correct.
Yeah, it's almost all deciduous trees at this point.
okay,
About the only cleared area on the lot is a small area around the existing house.
and from the previous testimony with Commissioner Dexter, did you say to the south that you'd be leaving a conservation easement, 25 feet or?
The western and southern property lines.
Western and southern. Yeah, what about the north? And I see you have limit of clearing on one of your unlabeled drawings, or one of your unlabeled aerials with the two houses. But I'd like to either see a row of abrevieties or some type of easement there, or buffer, vegetative buffer.
Yeah, the applicant would agree to that as well, in between the, along the northern property line of the interior lot, another 20-foot conservation easement.
Okay. All right. Let me just see, I had some notes. No, that was it. Okay. Commissioners, any reason to keep the public hearing open? None? Okay, staff? Applicant, you're all set?
All set, thank you very much.
Okay, so we'll close the public hearing at 8:04 PM. And we will move on to our next public hearing, which is application 21-55P, Maguire Road Associates. Oh. Okay. Thank you, Steve.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Robin Pearson. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Alter & Pearson in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and I am here this evening on behalf of the applicant, Maguire Road Associates, LLC, members of which are Derek and Blake Brannon. This is an application for a change of zone for a portion of 542 King Street and 45 John Fitch Boulevard, which is west of Route 5 and east of King Street, and comprises, for the area of change, 7.39 acres. You can see that area of zone change outlined in the exhibit that is on the screen behind you and is the first sheet of the handout that you have received this evening. The area of change would change that 7.39 acres from an RR, residential, rural residential, to GC, general commercial. And the purpose of the requested zone change is to be able to allow Hartford Truck Equipment, the business operation which is noted on the, that would be the westerly side of the property, to be able to expand into that area in the back, which it cannot do currently as it is zoned for residential development. Blake and Derek Brannon operate Hartford Truck Equipment, Inc. It's a family-owned business. I know you're familiar with them as they came before you recently and secured approval for a limited period of site plan use in order to be able to park vehicles associated with their Hartford Truck Equipment business, which I don't need to go into a lot more detail with regard to the use, but basically what they do is upgrade trucks that have been built elsewhere and are further finished here with adding special equipment or plows or other things, both to new and used trucks at this location. This is a family-owned business. The two brothers have taken it over and have, under their guidance, the business has flourished. In fact, it's been doing so well that in order to be able to continue to operate at this location and to grow in the way that they envision it growing, it is necessary to have additional room on the site and certainly to accommodate the parking for which they previously received the temporary site plan approval. What they plan to do has been presented through a diligent effort of theirs to their neighbors. They have been meeting extensively with the neighbors, both the commercial neighbors along Route 5 and also, in particular, the residential neighbors on King Street over the past number of months. And in doing so, they have discussed their needs with their residential neighbors in particular. They have discussed with them their approach as to what they would like to be able to do with their property to be able to accommodate their flourishing or their expanding needs for their business. And they have asked the neighbors what it is possible for them to do as a responsive business and a neighbor who cares to come up with a plan and a resolution that would protect the neighborhood from any of the business operations that they undertake and actually provide a real benefit in terms of planning improvements to that part of King Street in a way that would benefit the neighbors. And they have listened, and they got back to their neighbors with a responsive solution, which is part of, in many ways, the application that you have before you this evening. As a result, we have sort of an unusual situation in that we are presenting, and we'll go through in the course of our presentation this evening, an application that not only is a change of zone application for the site, but it's also linked to another application that you have pending before you already, which is a site plan request to be able to build a berm, an extensive berm along King Street that will be massively landscaped and will create a buffer that will really isolate and protect the residential properties on King Street from anything that happens on 542 and 45 John Fitch Boulevard, but also will provide a benefit and an improvement to that neighborhood such that it will act as a barrier both for activity on the applicant's property, but also from the noise and the other commercial activities that exist on along the Route 5 corridor. So we have the pending zone change application that's before you this evening, which I suppose is pretty straightforward and simple, but it is linked to that pending application for building a berm, which can be built whether or not the zone change is approved. That berm is not contingent on the zone being changed to a commercial zone. However, obviously the applicant would most likely not proceed unless there is a reason to build that berm, which would only happen if indeed the zone change is approved. But it's also linked to a promise that the applicants made to the neighborhood, which I would like to go through a little bit with you. I'm going to just say that that promise that I'm alluding to is not only that they will construct that berm, but also that they will apply a conservation easement along the area. And now we should go to the second slide, if I could. Within the area of the zone change, to make sure that even though there is a change of zone, assuming you approve it, there will be no ability to build anything within the area of that conservation easement. Am I able to use this to, okay. I am referencing the second page of your handout, and it's a plan that shows the area of zone change, which I am going to outline. It is that area surrounded in red. That's the 7.39 acres that would go from rural residence to general commercial if this application is approved. But the second component of that is the construction of a berm, which I should follow the outline of the berm, which I am doing, within the area of zone change. But more importantly, for the ultimate protection of the neighborhood, I am outlining now an area in which the applicant is committed to imposing a conservation restriction so that even though the berm is built, there will be no ability in the future for someone else, should that ever come to pass, that the Brannons no longer own that property, no one else would be able to go in and do anything inside that area that's protected by the conservation easement except to maintain that berm. That's the way the easement would be drafted. Now, the conservation easement and the construction of the berm will take place as soon as possible after the zone change is approved. I'd like to now ask Glenn Martin, who is a landscape architect with Design Professionals, to come up and go through with you what we are proposing with regard to that berm construction. And we understand it's not part of this application, but I think it's very important for you to have on the record these commitments that have been made by the Brannons to the neighborhood as part of your consideration, because it goes overall to whether or not this is an appropriate change for you to make with regard to the underlying zoning. And then he will be followed by Peter DeMalley, who, as you know, is a professional planner, and as in his capacity as that expert. He is going to explore further with you the reasons why this zone change makes all kinds of sense from a planning perspective. So if I may, I'd like to turn it over to Glenn at this point.
Good evening, Glenn Martin from Design Professionals, landscape architect. And just want to go over the landscaping of the berm. The buffer conservation easement will include an 8-foot-high berm, as mentioned. The berm begins here and will continue along King Street and behind these residential properties until this point. The berm will have a 6-foot-high black chain link fence with privacy slats on top of the berm. The fence will provide screening and security for the property. The berm is approximately 1,140 feet long with a 3-to-1 slope. Evergreen trees will be planted on both sides of the berm to provide additional screening of the property from King Street and the adjacent properties. So we'll have 3 layers of evergreen trees on the berm, on both sides of the berm. The evergreen tree buffer will also continue beyond the buffer conservation easement on the north portion of the property, which is this area right here. We'll have a double row of evergreens as well in this area to screen that northern part of the property. The larger existing deciduous trees along King Street will remain and help with providing additional screening. The dense brush and invasive species will be removed and lawn planted and the area maintained to be attractive for the neighbors. So in here we'll be removing invasive species and any dense brush that's there now, saving the larger trees and planting grass to make it an attractive part of the berm and landscaping. The evergreen trees on the proposed buffer will include a mixture of spruce, fir, and white pines. The white pines will be proposed in the center of the plantings. They will grow quickly to provide a dense screen along the entire berm. We'll have white pines in the middle. The firs and spruces will be planted on both sides of the white pines. Their dense branches will further enhance the planting screen. The trees will provide screening for the property and also provide wildlife habitat. The white pines, when they get large, can provide nesting habitat for hawks. The fir and spruce trees can also provide shelter and nesting habitat for other birds and other wildlife. Our client will be maintaining the berm plantings and caring for the trees on a regular basis. We've also prepared some sections to help illustrate the screening that we're proposing. This is the proposed 5-year growth of the proposed evergreen trees. From King Street, the 8-foot-high berm and the 6-foot-high fence with the additional evergreen trees will help screen the property on this portion. So as you can see, there's an effective screen to block the views from King Street. And over here on section 2 and 3, from existing home, you can see how the berm is effective at screening the property to the right with the 8-foot-high berm and the 6-foot-high fence and the evergreen trees. And the last slide shows the eventual growth of the evergreen trees at full-size maturity, which can be up to like 50 feet or more, just to show you that how the buffer will be eventually over time. At this time, I'll turn it back over to Peter D'Malley.
Good evening, Chairman Pasconis and Vice Chairman Foley and members of the Commission. For your record, Peter D'Malley, President of Design Professionals, offices at 21 Jeffrey Drive here in South Windsor. And we have been engaged by Maguire Road Associates as well as Hartford Truck Equipment to plan for their future development and to handle this particular application. We've had our civil engineers, landscape architects, land planners, and land surveyors involved in this initiative. And we've been working with other vendors as well on this particular site. As you know, you recently approved the temporary and conditional permit for storage of vehicles when they ran out of room due to the supply chain issues of late during the pandemic, and we thank you very much for that. Billy Mitchell for Environmental Services and Jay Murtha were involved with erecting the temporary wood mulch, you call it, berm. It's about 12 feet in height to completely screen the low-profile vehicles. Their brand-new vehicles are in storage behind that. That will eventually go away because it won't be needed anymore because of what Mr. Martin just indicated, one of our professional landscape architects, and incidentally, all three of our landscape architects were involved in contributing toward the design ideas, and this certainly will this berm plan, this landscape treatment plan, which is very significant, which will be as little as 95 feet in width. In depth from the houses and from King Street, and it'll go up to 200 feet at areas. It is 3.3 acres in size, and it is substantial, and it will be preserved in perpetuity, and the Brandons have conveyed to the neighbors that they will maintain that. Any dead trees, invasive species come in, whatever, mow the lawn, that type of thing, they'll maintain it into the future. Let's go through a few points. I'm not going to go through everything in the narrative statement, by the way. Don't want to get too late, but let me go through a few things. I'll close with the plan of conservation development, some of the things that are in there, bring it to your attention. They acquired from Ed King, some of you know Ed King. He's been around these parts for a long time, a great guy. They acquired 11.43 acres from him recently. And with that, it's split about 35% of it along Route 5. If I can show you on the, okay, here we go, cursor. This area in here is zoned commercial right now. That's west of Piccirillo's two buildings, which are this one and this one. And then goes all the way back to this line, the red line, which is the current rural residential zone. So that's 4 acres, and that's 35% roughly of the property. And then the same property, the same one single piece of property, this balance here, as Attorney Pearson indicated, is this whole thing here is 7.39 acres, which is roughly 65% of this roughly 11 and a half acre site that we have here. And this is their current operation right here, where they, in recent history, they built this new building, 16,500, give or take, 16,500 square foot building. It's one of the more attractive buildings on Route 5, and they maintain it beautifully. And then they have access to their facility from the west side, which is the back, where they do all their operations internally for upfitting trucks, which is a final assembly point of brand new trucks, putting on a truck bed, that type of thing, plows, et cetera, whatever the dealer has ordered. The customer has ordered through a truck dealer, the General Motors, Ford, Ram, and so they're the final point of assembly. And it's all inside, and it's relatively quiet operation, one of the better ones. Their building is a relatively low-profile building, and they intend to continue with that as they represented to the neighbors. On this particular slide here, we're being forthcoming about future plans. There could be a low-profile building here. Capital Studio Architects has looked at it, Dave Holmes, and it could be 20 feet eave height at the west side that's facing the berm, which will be berm with fence, which will be 14 feet in height. And that'll help screen all the operations over on this side, which are low profile as well. So that would serve with no doors or anything on the far side, just screening, additional screening effect. That we think that will help. Of the 7.49 acres before you tonight, which is in the red outline, 55% of that will be used, which is this area in gray on your exhibit, which is roughly 4 acres, and then 45% will not be used. That will be in that permanent conservation area within it. By the way, the buffer screening effect we have goes a little bit beyond into the current general commercial zone to enhance the effect. Our landscape architects decided to do that, and with the blessing of Derek and Blake Brannon. So, and that is 3.3 acres, we said. Incidentally, it includes a low depth, minimum depth, shallow, I guess you'd call it, area over here. Call it infiltration basin. It's really just, it's infiltration and water quality. It's not designed to be a real deep one. Our clients didn't want that. I don't think the neighbors want that either. But our clients committed this would just be a shallow one, really for water quality and infiltration. We'll have to supplement that with other below grade chambers and systems to achieve the required effect required by your regulations and DEP and other regulations. So we'll do those. If this doesn't have capacity, we don't expect it will. For attenuation, for example, stormwater attenuation, that'll be done through underground chambers and the balance of the site. And same thing with water quality, but this is primarily for water quality and some infiltration. We probably have to supplement that. But the soils here are excellent for infiltration. We don't expect any problem with that. Let me go to zoning map. Let me go up here if I may. Let's see where that is. Here we go. Next slide. Great. So here's Route 5, this area right here. Here's our site right here, going all the way around it. Not bad, too bad with a cursor. Back down to Route 5. This is the CIL facility here. This is between rounds. Carvana, the large used car operation here with their out there storage vehicles and their building here. And here's a gas station. And here's Pizzarilla's 2 buildings where you have the John Fitch pub and a package store and other uses in this area. And then the northerly building, you've got a restaurant. I think there's a nail salon. The medical marijuana dispensary is there, among other uses. So we've got the general commercial zone is here, all up and down Route 5 right here. And then we have all the way around it here is the rural residential zone where you have the church here. Is it still Truth Baptist Church? Yes, Truth Baptist Church is in here. They acquired some additional land, I think, right in here. I believe that was from Jim Murray, I think. But they acquired some additional land in here, so they got this large area here. And then you got single-family homes on the east side of King Street. 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. And then you've got some more on King Street, the east side, and on the west side as well. Very few of the lots conform to the rural residential zone, which is 175 feet of frontage. The vast majority of these lots do not have that frontage. There are a couple, I think this one up here does and this one, but they do not meet the normal standards for RR zone, which is not uncommon in the older areas of town where the houses have some age to them. And the lots tend to be, some of the lots tend to be a lot smaller than the basic 1 acre zoning you have in the rural residential zone. Let me get into other land uses also. Across the street in zoning is corridor development zone, where you have what used to be called DST Output, the largest private employer in town, which is now called Broadridge. And so they're over in here, and you have the gas station, and also you have the entertainment place. What do they call that place? I forget what it's called. But the miniature golf and entertainment place across the street as well. So you've got these uses here. Previously, I've been involved with Hartford Truck Equipment and the Maguire Road Associates for a long time. The only access to their facility over in this area in Maguire Road was Burnham Street to King Street and to Maguire Road. I don't know if any of you were on the commission at the time. We had a hearing. We're trying to expand in this area, do some things. And the neighborhood came out, was not happy about the fact that we have our only access to the facility because there's no access from Maguire Road to Route 5. And we had no access to Route 5 at all, and we couldn't. State wouldn't allow us to have access. So asked us to go, the commission and the neighborhood asked us to go figure out a way so that we didn't have any truck traffic or customer traffic coming on King Street, which is predominantly residential, and into their facilities. So we were able to secure from what was 10-pin bowl, Doc McKee, access into the facility, and now that has been continued with the development of Hartford Truck Equipment at 95 John Fitch Boulevard on the 4-acre site right here. So let me talk a little bit about land uses. If this were to remain the rural residential zone, this area right here, you would have none of this landscape buffering here at all that we're proposing. And this landscape buffering, which is a very ambitious plan and very expensive plan, I might add. We're talking about all along in here, 8-foot earthen berm, 1,140 feet in length, plus some additional landscaping down here, double row of trees. And on top of that, a 6-foot chain link fence with privacy slats. So we have effectively 14 feet immediately before we plant anything of screening. And then on both sides of it, as Glenn mentioned, we're going to have spruce trees and fir trees on both sides of the berm, and at the top of the berm, eastern white pines will be in here. So we're going to have fast-growing white pines. We're going to have the fuller firs and spruces on both sides to make sure it gets dense, and the height will be there where the white pines will grow very quickly. They tend to, over time, sometimes the branches die out at the bottom, but that will be covered with the firs and spruces. So we're going to be protecting that. If we were to leave it at rural residential, that means that this area in here would become most likely house lots on 1-acre house lots. So you're talking about, with this frontage, we're talking about probably 4 or 5 house lots. And they would go all the way back to here. They'd have a 50-foot buffer at the rear. There'd be no buffer anywhere around in here at all. So you'd have houses along in here, close to Route 5. Route 5, of course, is a north-south alternate to 91. We don't have an interstate on the east side of the Connecticut River, and that's a busy commuter route with truck traffic and lots of commuter cars. It gets noisy as their travel speeds go up, as you know. 40, 45, 50, 55 miles an hour, what have you, through this area, except when they stop and start from the traffic lights here at the intersection and up at 291. So you've got that consideration. So we would have houses here, most likely facing King Street, as they invariably do on frontage lots. And then you'd have backyards with pools and what have you. And then you'd have a buffer screening here, and you'd have it right up against commercial. We think our plan is, the vision of the Brannons is a better plan. We take this, which is roughly 200 feet in width, this area, roughly we'd be adding to this general commercial and put in this 3.3 acres of adequate screening, which will help all these houses here, their views of the existing and future commercial, all that would be helped, which does not exist today. I just think it's going to be a very effective screening. It'll help for noise from Route 5, any noise from businesses on the west side. You got a restaurant with drive-through, what have you. And also, it will visually obstruct views with aesthetically natural screening of anything to the east of the berm. And even for these houses up in here, looking through it, you won't be able to see down to Carvana, any of the other uses along here, plus what we're proposing on the roughly 4 acres and 200-foot wide area for Hartford truck equipment. Right up in this area, northwest corner of the 7.49 acres, there's existing commercial driveway. Ed Sunderland's property is right here. He's a resident of Main Street. He submitted a letter, I understand. He has rights to a commercial driveway here, as do Maguire Road Associates and these businesses along in here. They have the right to go out to King Street. It's of long standing. The Brannons would like to abandon that. They had to do it in conjunction with Mr. Sunderland, who had rights over that as well. He has agreed to relinquish his rights to that, as have the Brannons from Hartford Truck Equipment and Maguire Road Associates. So this is going to be abandoned. One little exception to that is the house here at, I think it's 542, excuse me, the St. Gervais house here. They have a driveway that comes into that area, encroaches on our property, just for that one single-family home for their convenience. We're just going to keep that driveway right there for their convenience, and not abandon that, because there's not going to be other traffic, because we'll have a berm and stuff behind. Nobody will be able to get in and out. It's only for the convenience of that homeowner during their tenure in this property. So they've agreed to do that. And beyond that, of course, will be the berm all in this area. Covered that, and that, I've covered most of the things I wanted to say, but I wanted to get into a couple things. Outreach to neighbors. I've been involved with that as well, but Blake and Derek met with neighbors. They invited everyone to come to their facility and meet with them. They would also meet with them individually if necessary. Some took them up on that, and some didn't. Those who are interested did meet with them. They had a couple of meetings at the office. They even had State Representative Jeff Curry, who had, was participating in, was it one meeting? Yeah, one meeting who attended, and I understand he submitted a letter as well. So they were, they met with them. There have been individual meetings, including some at my office, and the idea was to work out a plan that was beneficial to the neighborhood and pursued their interests as well, consideration of property values, privacy, noise, visual effects, and trying to create a low-profile development, and they've agreed to do that. And the public had a lot, the neighbors had a lot to say with that. They reached out to the commercial neighbors as well, but the emphasis was on the residential neighbors. And you have before you a large number of letters, most of which I consider characterized as supportive, but there's a large number of letters been submitted to you by abutters, commercial and residential, and also by other people on Main Street area and throughout the town, including some people who do business with them. We've been working with, let me go to this last slide, I think. We've been working with Capital Studio Architects. One thing we broached with the neighbors was that we put in a low profile, besides the berm and fence, which is 14 feet high, and all the trees on that, we put in a low profile building. You can go up to 40 feet in the zone. They have no interest in doing that. Capital Studio Architects, Dave Holmes, has come up with a design, working with the Brannons, which would be a 20-foot elevation with nothing on it in terms of overhead doors, anything of that nature, just be an attractive wall. To supplement the buffering here, so that everything, all the activities go on the other side is screened by this narrow building, which would end up being, it might be built in 3 phases, might be built in 1 phase, but it'd be narrow, I think it's about 75 feet in width, and that would be where they'd store inside what they're storing outside today to protect it, their upfitting equipment that they put on new trucks. So that would be a storage facility that they'd like to do. So we worked with them. It's a 20-foot elevation here, and that slopes up a little bit. On this side, it would be 26 feet. All the doors, overhead doors and pedestrian doors, all that stuff would be on the east side of the building facing toward Route 5, so nothing at either end, nor in the back along the berm. So there's a proposal to do that. They are proposing to do some buildings. That would be subject to approval of the commission. Going through architectural design review and the commission for a subsequent application if you approve the zone change and if you approve the buffer planting plan. Then I want to conclude with just a plan of conservation development. There are a few things I'd like to bring to your attention. Just, let me go right to this, excuse me. Some notes here, excuse me, 1 second. Your business development plan. That's on opposite page 46, I guess would be considered page 47, yes? It shows on the west side of Route 5 commercial, and it shows then on the east side of King Street, not sure exactly the depth of it because it's not supposed to be exactly along property lines, but it shows it white, which would be for residential purposes. So the question here is, what's appropriate? And I'll get into the flexibility of this plan, but this is a land use guide and a plan, a living document, and this is an area of debate as to how far you would go. We're proposing that you go behind the house lots that are existing into King Street and create this big buffer, and 45% of the 7.39 acres would be preserved, which is similar to what you want to do there, which is just have residential or something like that. Also, you want to create in your plan, business plan, create focal points along Route 5. This is the entrance, the gateway from East Hartford, and also from I-291. Also, you have in your plan to encourage business development. The majority of land, and this on page 60, majority of land along Route 5 is zoned for business uses and is intended that Route 5 will remain South Windsor's most expansive economic development corridor. We're consistent with that. And then also under item on page 62, item E, encourage improvements to yards and buildings. Work with landowners to enhance screening of storage areas and parking, exactly what we're doing with the 3.3 acre design that Mr. Martin presented to you. Also, protect established neighborhoods, minimize impacts from potential incompatible activities such as traffic, noise, lights, etc., through the zoning regulations and a careful review of proposed developments. This particular use that they want to do here certainly, I think, fits that category. And what we're doing for the buffering and screening is implementing that proposal in their plan. And when we go to the back, a few more things here. You do, on the conservation plan, it has the whole area there for conservation. I don't know why, but we're proposing to conserve the westerly part of our area. And locational guide map for development shows along Route 5, the west side, to be one of more intensive development areas, but then less development along both sides of King Street. And then in your conclusion on page 99, that the town will, and I'm paraphrasing here, the town will also welcome new businesses and help existing businesses grow and succeed. The goals and strategies in this plan of conservation development provide a framework for town decisions and actions over the next 10 years. The implementation element, a separate document, provides guidance on priorities, how to carry out the strategies and key entities to help implement the plan of conservation development. But this is a key thing. Over the next 10 years, new challenges and opportunities may emerge. We think there's one tonight. And new tools might become available. This plan of conservation development should be viewed as a living document and updated as needed to respond to changing circumstances. So I think those are things that you can take into consideration when you're reviewing the zone change. What's the impact on the neighborhood? Should you have houses on house lots, which is the standard use in the rural residential zone on 1 acre lots, backing up with not in my backyard? We hear it all regularly, but right up against a buffer and against a general commercial zone. Is that what you want? Or is it more appropriate to have less, to have the zone change and have a true buffer to screen the existing homes and uses along King Street in that neighborhood, and put in a huge buffer screening to help not only buffer the additional 4 acres that Hartford Truck Equipment would be able to use, but also everything beyond that along Route 5 to help a lot of homeowners along there. And Blake and Derek have worked a lot to work with the neighbors to achieve their goals and to share the vision. And it's a vision that's been growing due to input from the neighbors. And I think you're going to see that they had a lot of contact with a lot of people, and I urge you to review those letters that we've submitted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a few comments before ceding the microphone to you and members of the public with any questions, and reserve the right to have conclusory comments once we hear what others have to say or what you might be interested in hearing from us. But I would like to just underscore for you, and I know you're quite familiar with this, but tonight you're sitting on this application and acting within your legislative capacity, because you're going to be deciding either tonight or at your next meeting whether or not this is an appropriate change of zone for the property. In sitting legislatively, you have a great deal of power and a great deal of discretion. You are required by state statute, section 8-2, to give, not give consideration, but to actually apply and follow the comprehensive plan in making your decision. You do also have to give consideration to the plan of conservation and development. Now, Peter Demali has just spent a little bit of time going through for you the reasons why he feels we are in compliance with the plan of conservation and development, to which I also say I agree. But there's one aspect of that plan that we can't ignore, and that is that the land use map that's contained in the plan of conservation and development does show the area that we're proposing for the GC zone to be residential. Peter alluded to the fact that plans of conservation and development are documents that can be changed and do change based on considerations as to how the community is developing or what's appropriate for a particular situation or plan going forward. But the important thought I'd like to leave you with is that the plan of conservation and development is only a guidance document. The state statute and your own regulations do not require you to comply with what exactly is in your plan of conservation and development. Indeed, you have the authority and the jurisdiction to make zone changes based on other considerations, though you also must review it as part of your process. I'm just suggesting to you that in addition to our solution for making sure that the neighbors are protected and that the commercial zone will not negatively impact them along King Street, that the proposal that you have to consider, and when you have to think about whether it complies with the comprehensive plan, that means you must look at whether it makes sense in the context of existing zoning in the area. Peter has gone through all the commercial uses that are along Route 5. We've proposed for you a way to make sure there's no intrusion of those commercial uses into that residential neighborhood in any way that will ultimately have any negative impact on them. But I'd also like to point out to you that looking at this this plan that shows the outline of the zoning area, you'll note again that this is the line, I'm outlining it for you now, as to where we propose to place the conservation easement. And it sort of complies with or is similar to this line right here, which is the property, that would be the westerly line of the Sunderland site, which is, even though it's legally non-conforming and not zoned for commercial use, it does accommodate, and has for a long time, commercial uses on this site. So really, allowing commercial uses in this area, and we've told you why you will never have a commercial use on the outside perimeter, is not out of character with the extended commercial use that takes place on this property, which is a mix of commercial. I understand they have commercial tenants there as well as residential use. So it is definitely not a spot zoning situation. It's an extension of an existing zone into a very deep lot with protections for the neighborhood. It makes sense in the context of the POCD from the standpoint of benefiting existing businesses and encouraging changes that will allow good development along Route 5. And it's also in keeping with the uses that already exist in this area, not just to the east of this zone change line, but also to the north, where there is a commercially characterized non-conforming use that exists. So we hope with all of that you will be able to look favorably upon this application. We look forward to addressing any of the comments that are made by you or by the public. And I did want to mention one thing. I didn't introduce them at the beginning of the presentation, but I do want you to know that both Brandon brothers are here, should you have any comments for them. They care very deeply about this application. It means everything to the continuation of their business, and they hope very much for a positive result with this zone change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll turn to our Director of Planning, Michelle Light.
Thank you. This request for a zone change is 7.35 acres from rural residential to general commercial, property located at 542 King Street. Property is on the easterly side of King Street, westerly of the existing zone line that exists approximately 500 feet from Route 5. Property is currently bordered by general commercial land to the east, residential zoning to the west, north, and the south. Commission may recall approving a temporary conditional permit last year for the parking of about 100 vehicles on the property to the south towards Route 5. And they did put a screening berm along the back of that area there under a one-year conditional permit. Back in 2016, the Commission also approved a site plan at 95 John Fitch Boulevard that did require a 50-foot buffer along the rear property line. So the area that's subject to this request tonight is all that area to the west of the red line, as you've seen tonight. So under the current residential zoning, the property along King Street could be subdivided into residential building lots. RR zone requires 175 feet of frontage with 200 feet of depth. It could be used for some non-residential uses such as churches or daycares, which we do have both of those in that general area. One thing that would be required with development with the 50-foot buffer would be required both on the commercial side of the zone line as well as on the residential side of the zone line. So it is, in essence, there you would have a 100-foot buffer area on either side of the zone line under conventional development of this scenario. So again, you'd have 50-foot of buffer on the residential side and 50-foot on the commercial side with new development. Under the proposal for general commercial zone, what the Commission should be aware of, and I know the applicant's intent is to use it for Hartford truck, but when a zone change is granted, you should be comfortable with all the uses in the zone because those potentially could be proposed. Under a general commercial zone, it is our least restrictive zoning classification. We allow things as of right like retail sales, restaurants, taverns, including fast food, laundry, printing, building material sales and storage, motor vehicle sales and storage, gas stations, by special exception, by daycares, duplexes. So all those types of uses could potentially be proposed. The other thing you should be aware of is the lot coverage differences. In a general commercial zone, the minimum lot size is 30,000 square feet with 150 feet of frontage if you're on Route 5. In theory, you could have 100 foot of frontage on King Street and create 30,000 square foot lots if one chose to subdivide it. I know that's, again, not the intent of this application, but the Commission should be aware what the regulations would allow. In a general commercial zone, you have a 50-foot front yard setback, a 15-foot rear yard setback for all structures. Maximum building height allowed in a general commercial zone is 40 feet. The lot coverage ratios are different as well. In our rural residential zone, you can cover 15% of the lot with structures. In the general commercial zone, you could cover up to 30% of the lot with structures and up to 65% of the lot with pavement and structures. The one thing with this scenario here, one of the concerns I have a little bit with the buffer is how much of that would count as your green space, and you could end up with everything else being pavement. So that's just something that the Commission should be aware of. Commercial lighting is permitted to be 25 foot tall as well. So you could have 25-foot poles of lighting right up to the easement line. Again, buffers are required wherever zone line meets. However, buffers are not required along street frontages. So under zoning, there is no requirement along King Street for a buffer if that were zoned to general commercial. Again, they're showing a proposal that would include that. We do have very specific requirements when reviewing a zone change. I'm looking at the plan of conservation and development, the purpose of the zoning regulations, changes that have taken place in the rate and pattern of development, supply of land available in the present and proposed zone, the physical suitability of the land, the impact on capacity of present and proposed utilities, streets, drainage systems, other improvements, general character and zoning of the neighborhood, impacts on surrounding area, traffic congestion impacts, impact on property values, the environmental impacts, health and general welfare of the community, neighborhood acceptance weighed against community needs, and the protection of historic factors. The town plan does show this area as low-density housing. Chapter 11, the residential development of the POCD, suggests that the town maintain established densities and patterns. It goes on to state that action should minimize impacts from potential incompatible activities such as traffic, noise, light through the zoning regulations and careful review of proposed developments. We've heard tonight about the applicant's intent to create a berm along King Street frontage as a conservation easement berm. There's also an existing driveway that connects this property to other property owned by the adjacent property owner that would remain, creating a gap in the berm until such time, I believe, until the property owner no longer lives there. There is also the proposed berm and water detention area. Commercial activities, in essence, would be between 125 and 175 feet from King Street, which currently now they're over 250 feet from King Street. So they are bringing commercial activity closer to King Street. So our staff's main concern centers around the berm over time and the introduction of commercial activities closer to the existing residents of King Street. I did provide you a recent picture from King Street looking at the rear of Hartford truck, showing the 50-foot buffer requirement that was established in 2016. I think you would say you can pretty much clearly see all the outdoor storage that's supposed to be screened. So I just am concerned about screening over time and bringing activities closer to King Street. The other concern are for the potential other types of general commercial uses that could end up there, things with taller buildings, 24-hour operations that would be permitted as of right that may bring other negative impacts into the area. There is existing water and sewer available in John Fitch Boulevard for expansion on the site. At the time of any site plan approval, Water Pollution Control Authority would be required. There are no regulated wetlands on the existing parcel at the time of any site plan application. If disturbance over half-acre, a wetlands approval would be required. Zone change appropriate time to discuss traffic impacts. The applicant's proposal showing the conservation buffer easement would not allow any curb cuts onto King Street, so no new commercial traffic should be introduced there. As indicated by Mr. DeMaile, there's a long history of traffic coming on and off the site from Route 5, and that would be the primary use and the only use proposed for commercial traffic. A site plan development would be required prior to any commercial or special activity on this site. If the zone change is approved, the commission must state on the record that you found the zone change to be consistent with the plan of conservation and development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, we'll turn to our town engineer, Jeff Doolittle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no comments on the zone change application.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we will open it up to the public. We do have letters to read into the record, which, yeah. Do we have a plan for that yet? I'll turn to our secretary for the reading of the letters.
Many of these letters, just scanning through quickly, and I'm not saying all of them, but many of these letters are favorable, so that might help people not have to repeat themselves when they actually come and speak. So they might be good to read these now, I think.
They have to be read into the record, so it's appropriate now.
Okay. So this is a letter. It appears to be anonymous. Are we reading anonymous letters in?
We had several people who wanted to submit anonymously. You know, we advised them we would bring them to the commission, and the commission could give whatever weight they wanted to them being anonymous. But
okay, so there are several anonymous letters. I guess I'll leave it up to the chair if you want to read them in. At least two, so I think we
Okay,
all.
save those for last.
Okay. So this letter is from Steve St. Jare. If I pronounce that wrong, I apologize. Dear Chairman Pasiconis, my name is Steve St. Jare of 574 King Street. I am in support of the zone change and site plan application of the Hartford truck equipment directly next to my home and lot, which are residentially zoned. I have met with Blake and Derek Brannon and with their engineer and like what they are proposing to protect me and my neighbors and to protect our property values. This includes a large berm over 1,000 feet long and over 3 acres of buffering with evergreen trees and fencing along King Street behind my house and other homes. They will do that immediately before they extend their operations. It also includes a commitment to building lower profile buildings and to allow me to continue using a driveway over their land, which is very convenient to me. This driveway will be permanently closed to commercial trucks, either another plus for me and my King Street neighbors. Finally, I hope you and the commission will allow Blake and Derek to grow their clean business along Route 5 and help keep my taxes low. This letter is from Representative Jeff Curry. Our support of application 2155P, Maguire Road Associates LLC, doing business as Hartford Truck Equipment. Chair Pasiconis and members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, please allow this correspondence to serve as a means for my support of application 2155P, Maguire Road Associates LLC, doing business as Hartford Truck Equipment. For the last 7 years, I've had the privilege of serving as state representative for the 11th Assembly District, which is comprised of the southernmost area of South Windsor, essentially south of Pleasant Valley, as well as areas of East Hartford and Manchester. Having had the pleasure of meeting and speaking with the owners and operators of Hartford Truck Equipment on several occasions to review and provide feedback on the many iterations of their proposed request, I can unequivocally say that I have not personally witnessed a more inclusive and responsive process. Given that there are very few direct abutters, 16 to be exact, this provided the applicants with an opportunity to form solid relationships and develop trust with homeowners most likely to be impacted. This was as inclusive as a process as it could and should be in these circumstances. Due to the company's engagement and receptiveness to residents' feedback, the application before you tonight includes many of the suggested upgrades and improvements received from impacted homeowners. Their voices were heard and the applicants responded accordingly. Given this family-owned business's high level of engagement, willingness to adapt, and overall respect for the area neighbors for almost 30 years now, I respectfully ask that the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission vote to approve application 2155P, Maguire Road Associates LLC, doing business as Hartford Truck Equipment. Thank you for your time and consideration. Jeff Curry, State Representative.
Steve, I'm going to hold off on the rest for now. What I'd like to do is I'd like to open it up to the public because you're here right now. The letters were sent via email or presented to us. So if there's anyone from the public who would like to speak in favor of this application, please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak in opposition or have questions or comments? Please step forward. And I'll remind the public that there is a sign-in sheet. If you could print your name and address and introduce yourself to the commission.
Good evening to the commissioners, the vice chair and chairman. Thanks for your time this evening. My name is Derek Butler from 596 Governor's Highway, South Windsor. I would like to speak up for the neighborhood. Once again, it looks like we're pushing commercial into residential areas, and I'm just going to ask that you please do not do to them what is going on the Talbot Governor's Highway area. It just seems like for the town now, all of a sudden, we're changing every square inch of open space to a big box. And it's, to me, it's changing the whole, it's just changing the town's format. So I'm against it. I'm against the change from rural to commercial. And again, I'm just going to ask that we just slow it down on commercial development. Take a look at all of the options. Not all promises come through. And it's awesome that Hartford Truck, their business is expanding and doing well, but what happens if in 5 years they decide to sell or move? Or if the business does so well that this isn't big enough for them? So I'm just going to please ask that you consider leaving it rural residential. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak on this application? Please step forward. And I'll ask the members of the public, we do have pending litigation on another application, and I really ask that you not reference or not bring up something that we have pending litigation on. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, John Holozak, Cody Circle. I am neither for nor against this application. Just wanted to note that there's the potential to set precedents. Having been in town for 29 some odd years, I've taken a look at the town's plan of development more than a couple of times, and there's an awful lot of rural residential spaces sort of threaded throughout the town. And, you know, it's an awkward example, but, you know, when the Buckland Gateway Zone was proposed, there was no residential activity there at all, and then some got in, and now more got in, and now more is being proposed. So it's not the best example, but just beware of setting precedent. All the same, I will say that I received about 6 texts during this presentation from people that are watching online tonight, and all of them were amazed at the thoroughness of the design of the buffer. There's some envy. So I wish you luck in your decision. Good night.
John, could you please sign in again? Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak against? Please step forward. And you can sign in either before or after you speak.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Wayne Botha. Just some questions for the Commission to consider on this application. I think it was initially presented as this would only be for parking, but I believe now there's going to be a warehouse on that site. So just ask for clarification on what exactly is the proposal. Will there be any additional entrances needed for trucks, or will everyone just be going through the existing entrances through Hartford truck? The screening is a chain link fence with vinyl inserts on the buffer. Just want to confirm that that is the correct interpretation, that that would be providing the screening. And then what about future expansion to the adjacent lots? There's lots adjacent to this one. Will they expand into that in the future? Finally, I ask that the Commission consider if there are other options rather than general commercial for the applicant to be able to grow their business. If this is the least restrictive zoning, are there other options that the applicant could be using to grow their business and still protect our neighborhood? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against or have questions or concerns? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing. Oh, okay. You'd like to speak? Okay, thank you. And Miss in the back, were you interested in speaking also? Okay. You'll be after this gentleman. Thank you.
Rich DeLay, 95 Cody Circle. I just want to say, you guys live and breathe this every day. These guys live and breathe this every day. I don't know if any of the neighbors are here to speak for themselves. They get something in the mail. They don't know what it means. So just because they're not here doesn't mean this wouldn't be devastating to them. What you're opening up by changing this to commercial. Maybe what they have for a project right now, but down the road it could be something different. So I just want to speak for them because they might not understand why they're not here, you know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And obviously I'm opposed to it.
Okay. Okay. Miss?
Hi, my name is Jessica Utello. We are speaking a little bit out of turn, but hearing some things that were said, we would like to clarify. We are abutters of the Hartford trucking property. We live at 510 King Street. Our property is probably...
What number, please?
510.
510?
Directly behind.
Okay.
We have met with Blake and Derek and the teams, and we have gone through this since day one. I have spoken at other meetings. In the beginning, there was issues with permits not being followed properly. I will tell you, they have stepped up. They have met with us. They have offered to meet with people. The letters have been very clear as to what the plans were and what our options were, and we are for them. We agree with what they're doing. We like the idea of what they're offering us as far as protection versus having houses that are back straight up to us where we can look in our neighbors' windows. My parents were actually South Windsor High School sweethearts. They grew up here. I still have family here. I know what South Windsor looked like 40 years ago. I do agree that the commercial is getting a little bit overwhelming, but I think on this, it is, what they're trying to do is to keep the neighborhood feel while growing their business, and if nothing else, South Windsor has always been about the mom and pop shops. So we stand with them.
Yeah, they've been very forthright. They've come at every turn to meet with us, sit down with us, voice our concerns. They've addressed every single one of them that we've brought to their attention. And like I said, we're directly behind, our backyard butts up to the property that they're going to be
Okay, so just
renovating.
to clarify, you're Robert and Jessica Usello,
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
So we're for it. We think they're been very forthright and helpful through this whole process. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against or have questions or concerns? Please step forward. Hearing and seeing none, we'll turn to commissioners. Commissioner Quarishi.
The only concern I'd like to voice is the same one as zoning being completely unrestricted.
Speak up a little, please.
The zoning being completely unrestricted. I think that's the only concern I'd bring up.
Okay, thank you. Before we go to the rest of the commissioners, we do have the letters to finish reading into the record. Do you need a hand with those? Are you all set?
I'll probably hand off after my voice goes away.
Okay.
This is a letter from Kenneth Slater Jr., representing Heller and Sage. Dear Mr. Chairman and members of this commission, this firm represents Prime Wellness LLC, a retail tenant at 75 John Fitch Boulevard. I'm writing on its behalf in support of the proposed zone change of the above referenced property to general commercial zoning. Hartford Truck Equipment is a good neighbor and important local business. Changing the zone so that the entire Hartford Truck Equipment property is general commercial is sound from a planning and zoning perspective. With the buffer and conservation areas proposed, if the zone change is granted, Hartford Truck Equipment will be able to enhance economic development in the community in a manner that is consistent with the neighborhood. This letter is from Edward T. Sullivan III, living at 1464 Main Street. Dear Chairman Pasiconis, I'm writing you to express my unqualified support for the zone change and landscape buffer site plan applications of Maguire Road Associates that are now before the Planning and Zoning Commission. I do so as the long-term owner of a 2.11 acre parcel in a rural residential zone at 37 Maguire Road, which directly abuts the area of the zone change, and also as the owner of a residence on Main Street. One reason for this support is that the applicants, Derek and Blake Brandon, have engaged design professionals and their landscape architects to design a 3.3 acre landscape buffer along King Street and behind or beside the residential abutters, which will benefit all of their neighbors and preserve property values. It is a robust design containing an expansive earthen berm, fencing, and a large number of evergreen trees, and which will be in a permanent conservation easement. It will screen the operations of Hartford Truck Equipment as well as many other existing commercial enterprises on Route 5. The King Street neighborhood will be protected and remain residential in character. The second reason is that while they are seeking a 7.39 acre zone change, only 4 acres or 55% will actually be used by Hartford Truck Equipment. The balance will be maintained by the applicants in a natural state along their King Street frontage after buffer improvements are completed. My third reason is that they are willing to abandon the existing commercial access drive through the subject property to King Street. As requested, I have also agreed to abandon my interest in that commercial driveway. It will become part of the buffer landscaping. This too will help their neighbors. My final reason for supporting these applicants is that I want to encourage Derek and Blake to continue to grow their thriving business along Route 5 in South Windsor, which provides a valuable service to regional businesses and enjoys a wonderful reputation. Edward T. Sunderland III. This is from Tima C. Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Sharon, to whom it may concern, we have been longtime residents of South Windsor, and we support Hartford Truck expansion of their business due to the fact that their plans support growth in South Windsor's community while protecting the neighbors and neighborhood from being industrialized, making it a positive change for all. This letter is from Peter Cirillo, listed as P.O. Box 98, Fiscal Station. Let me see if he has an address here. My neighbors on Route 5, Derek and Blake Brandon of Hartford Truck Equipment, are asking you and the Planning and Zoning Commission to change the 11 acres of land that directly abuts my properties at 59 and 73 John Fitch Boulevard from 2 zones, rural residential and general commercial, to a single zone general commercial. I am in support of their application. It is the right thing to do. My first reason for supporting this important zone change is that all of the properties along this stretch of Route 5 from I-291 to the East Hartford town line should be zoned for commercial uses and not for individual homes on 1-acre lots. This area is far too busy with noisy truck traffic and car traffic for residential homes. It is also already commercially developed with gas stations, restaurants, used car dealerships, Carvana, retail stores, equipment dealers, and other intensive uses which need to be separated from residential neighborhoods. My second reason for supporting this zone changes request is that the Brannons have reached out to their residential neighbors and have agreed to reserving 3.3 acres or 45% of the 7.4 acre zone change area for a permanent conservation easement. This will give the neighbors the important buffering they need between their homes and area businesses, some of which operate late into the evening and in the early morning. The components of that conservation area to offer noise reduction and visual screening were worked out in consultation with residential neighbors and the Brannons landscape architects. My third and final reason to support this appropriate change is that Blake and Derek have been excellent neighbors. True to their word, the Hartford Truck Equipment building and grounds are impeccably maintained and is attractive. Their hours of operation do not extend into the evening past 5, and they only have some limited office operations Saturday mornings. Truck deliveries no longer arrive via King Street, and all truck deliveries end at 3 in the afternoon on weekdays. They do not occur at night or in the early morning hours. That is respectful of the residential neighbors. They are doing what they can to upgrade the Route 5 corridor. I'm hopeful that you will, through approving this application, help them to continue to prosper and serve their many customers throughout the Hartford region and beyond. Do you want to read a few of these?
The next letter is from Catherine Kuka, 606 Spring Meadow Road, to whom it may concern. I am pleased to be writing a letter of support for Hartford Truck Equipment's proposal for their expansion. I strongly support this company's vision and the focus on creating jobs within our community, all while protecting the neighbors and community around the physical location. I am aware they have been very active within the town doing charity work, such as collecting toys for the less fortunate for Christmas. I look forward to seeing how they grow in helping the community. Catherine Kuka, a supportive South Windsor resident.
I'll take the next one. I am writing in favor of the zone change for 542 King Street. I am familiar with the company and what they are trying to do. It would be for outside storage with a buffer that is way better than what's there now. Residents of King Street can now look right into their backyard. The buffer will be eye-appealing and well-maintained as their property is now. Tom Silver, 115 Muriel Drive.
Oh, let me do this one. To whom it may concern, I'm writing this letter in support of Hartford Truck Equipment's proposal of zone change. I am the CEO of Transfer Enterprises and own buildings in both South Windsor and Manchester, Connecticut. Hartford Truck Equipment's fast and reliable service is invaluable to many businesses throughout New England, including my own. Whenever I need to replace something on one of our snow removal vehicles, Blake is my first call. Their professionalism saves me time and money, and it's always a pleasure visiting this business and dealing with his staff. If you haven't already, I recommend swinging by and walking this showroom to see firsthand how well kept this business is. Over many visits to Hartford Truck Equipment, I've had the opportunity to get to know Blake well. He truly cares about the South Windsor community and is proud of his company. This pride shows through in the cleanliness of the lot and shop. Blake and his team have the utmost respect for neighboring businesses and residences. He has made numerous efforts to run his business in a way that is beneficial to the community, and I'm confident he will execute an expansion with these same principles. Zoning change is an opportunity for another small business to grow in South Windsor. As a fellow small business owner in this area, I have always appreciated the support that the town and residents of South Windsor have provided Transfer Enterprises. I hope that this letter of recommendation aids you in your decision. Thank you for your time and consideration. Alan Lawton III, CEO of Transfer Enterprises on 8 Nutmeg Road South.
Alan, would you take the next one, please?
Yeah. January 4th, 2021. I am fully in favor of the proposed change to the zoning for the expansion of Hartford Truck Equipment. This is a family-owned, long-standing, solid company in our town. They provide necessary service to many in our very professional manner. The proposed change would allow for the Hartford Truck Equipment to expand their storage area without impacting the neighbors due to the design. With the extensive berm, fence, and plantings, this would not be a noise or visual concern. By allowing them to expand, we are investing in the future of a local company, which is an important decision. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions or concerns. Sincerely, Jay Murtha of Jay's Landscaping, LLC.
Stephanie, would you take the next?
Absolutely. Dear Chairman Passaconis, I'm writing this letter in support of the zone change application of Hartford Truck Equipment for 7.4 acres of land along King Street. In that application, Blake and Derek Brandon are proposing to change land that directly abuts my property at 13 John Fitch Boulevard from rural residential to general commercial. My support for this application is based on several important factors. First is that the zone change is a logical extension of the zoning along Route 5. Second is that they are committed to placing 3.3 acres of that zone change under a permanent conservation easement to separate their business from area residences. Third is that they will be installing an 1,140 feet long earthen berm, 8 feet high, planted with evergreen trees to screen their business and other area businesses from the King Street residences. And my final reason to support this application is that I know Blake and Derek to be reputable businessmen who run a first-class operation, and I want them to continue to grow their business in South Windsor. Sincerely, Dave Carone.
I go back to Alan for the next one, please.
All right. Members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, I am a resident of the King Street neighborhood abutting the proposed development at 542 King Street. I'm writing to say that although I do not actively support this change or prefer it to the status quo of an open field, I am not opposed to it either. I acknowledge this outcome simply means more to the petitioners at Hartford Truck Equipment than it does to me. Moreover, I am satisfied that Hartford Truck is making a good faith effort to accommodate the aesthetic and privacy concerns of the neighborhood in their proposed buffer design and have shown a willingness to work with us. Lastly, I take into consideration that the status quo is not the only possible alternative and that if this proposal fails, there may be less desirable development in the future. And that one I think is anonymous.
Okay, and Steve, would you?
You saved the long ones for me, huh? So this is from Kent Schwendy, PELEDAPCNUA, President and CEO of CIL. On behalf of the Corporation for Independent Living, CIL, I am writing to support the zone change application of Maguire Road Associates LLC for 7.4 acres of land along King Street and Route 5. The applicant is proposing a zone change on land which directly abuts property at 37 John Fitch Boulevard, owned by a CIL affiliate. The proposed zone change is from rural residential to general commercial. I currently lead CIL, a nonprofit real estate development company focused on creating and sustaining inclusive and welcoming communities. I'm a licensed professional engineer, CEPE number 19085. I am also an accredited member of the Congress for the New Urbanism, a certified construction specifier from the Construction Specification Institute, and an accredited professional by the U.S. Green Building Council Leadership in Energy and Environment Design, LEED program. For the majority of my professional career, spanning more than 30 years, I have worked as a design engineer and mobility transportation planner throughout the United States. My support for this application is based on several important considerations. One, the subject property is adjacent to a section of John Fitch Boulevard, Route 5, which is currently zoned general commercial. The zone change would be an extension of the commercial zoning and is appropriate for the area based on type of road, traffic volumes, and site access. The applicant has committed to using only just over 4 of the 7.4 acres, 55% of the proposed zone change area for commercial purposes. Working with the neighbors, they have agreed to encumber 3.3 acres of the proposed zone change area under a permanent conservation easement to separate the King Street neighborhood from Route 5 and the associated commercial uses. They've agreed to install a 1,140-foot long earthen berm up to 8 feet high and cover it with well over 100 evergreen trees and a 6-foot high privacy fence. This will establish a buffer between the commercial uses and adjoining King Street residential area. The proposal will preserve the property values of all abutting properties, including CILs and the residential neighborhood along King Street. The owners of Maguire Road Associates and their tenant, Hartford Truck Equipment, are already operating a highly successful, important, and well-respected enterprise, allowing them to grow their business and prosper benefits South Windsor and the region. Sincerely, Kent Schwendy.
I'm going to ask Vice Chair Foley to read the next letter and Commissioner LeBlanc to read the letter after that.
This letter is from Vasilos Makos of 29 Farnham Road. It says, Dear Chairman Pasagonis, I am writing this letter of support for the Hartford Truck Equipment proposal for expansion. As a resident of South Windsor, I fully support their vision to grow their business. I believe a family-owned business such as Hartford Truck should be fully supported by our town, not only for providing a valuable service to the regional businesses and employment opportunities to residents of South Windsor, but also for their involvement in giving back to the community. I strongly urge the Commission to approve the plan to help a local business continue to grow and prosper. Sincerely, Vasilos Makos.
Okay, this next letter is from Dana Duffy. It's addressed to the Town of South Windsor Zoning Board. I am writing in favor of the zone change for 542 King Street. The buffer will create an attractive barrier, excuse me, for those that are currently seeing the backyard of Hartford Truck Equipment. This company continues to build a community around them, and I love their forward thinking and always putting their community first. Please consider the zone change. Sincerely, Dana Duffy.
Commissioner Viteri.
To whom it may concern, I wanted to raise my hand in support of Hartford Truck Equipment's expansion. I have known the family for many years and am very happy to see the business doing well in such a difficult time. Living in town, it is nice to see a family-run business doing well, especially with all the big companies coming in. It is admirable to see a small operation expand and be successful. Many of my friends have done business with the company, whether it be directly or indirectly, bought an item, plow, or body directly, or wound up with a truck with their body on it, All have consistently said what a wonderful place it is to do business with. I wish them the best of luck and hope for their continued success. Thank you, Greg Leone, 124 Ridgefield Drive, South Windsor.
Commissioner Quirishi?
Okay, so this one is anonymous. To whom it may concern, I am a property owner in the King Street neighborhood. My property does abut the property that is up for rezoning. In an effort to maintain a working relationship with all of my neighbors, I have asked to remain anonymous. Hartford Trucking originally went ahead and started processes before being properly permitted to do so, which put me on edge. Since that, they have been very open and communicative with us. There have been many meetings at their business to discuss what their vision was and to listen to our concerns and suggestions. They have continued that with mailing letters to keep everyone informed as to their next steps, etc., before moving forward. They seem to have taken our initial concerns very seriously and have attempted to rectify it moving forward. Due to their consistent communication and openness, I now have a better understanding of what their vision is. I have been able to state my concerns and suggestions to them and their planning team only and honestly. They have taken action to make sure they are rectified. I am now comfortable enough and informed enough to say that I support Hartford Trucking in the rezoning of the King Street property from residential to commercial, especially with the easement that has been discussed and the berm with matured trees. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Commissioner Cavagnero?
This is from the Paggioli family. Apologize if I mispronounce that. To whom it may concern, I'm in support of Hartford Truck Equipment's expansion as a South Windsor resident and an HTE employee. Hartford Truck has been a great business in South Windsor for more than 25 years. As a local small business, expanding can bring more employment opportunities to the local area with competitive pay and benefits. Hartford Truck currently uses its buildings to maintain solar energy and would continue its pledge to green energy and positive environmental protection. As Hartford Truck grows within our town, there will be more opportunities for community support within activities and fundraising. We should support our local businesses by letting them grow within our town. Sincerely, the Paggioli family.
Okay, and I believe that's the last letter that I'm aware of.
Yep.
Do you have any
These
others?
these are the same anonymous ones, just Jeff Curry we already read.
Okay, so
That's all I have, at least.
we've read all the letters. Okay. So at this time, I'll go back to commissioners. Commissioner Viteri.
Thank you. My question had to deal with the access driveway on King Street that currently is there, that, Mr. DeMel, I think you said that that's going to be just preserved for that one residence?
Yes,
there?
that's the extreme northwest corner of our property. That is the tail end of the commercial driveway that's in place right now that other properties have rights over, in particular Ed Sunderland. And we've all agreed to relinquish that, but so the very end of it, close to the residence, they'd be allowed to continue to use that for the extent of their tenure in that house.
Those who currently use it now, they'll exit onto Maguire Street, I guess?
No, that house fronts on King Street, and it exits right onto King Street.
No, I mean the commercial use that's currently being made of that access driveway.
Yeah, the Sunderlands have the primary access, that property through Maguire Road.
Okay, and as far
So
as
they don't need this.
And then going forward, as far as Hartford Truck is concerned, their only access will come from Route 5.
That's correct.
And going forward, the way this is.
All
approved,
Hartford Truck equipment truck entries are all from Route 5.
Great, thank you. That was it.
Okay, Commissioner LeBlanc.
Okay, mine is more of a general question. Looking at the berm and looking at the slideshow earlier, I realized that the trees will be planted will be pretty young and they grow, and of course the last slide had these big mature trees, but what happens in the event along the way that some of these trees pass on and turn brown and fade away? And I'm not saying for this, but I've seen many projects throughout the state where berms are constructed, trees are planted, trees die, they're not replaced. So now you have this gaping hole between this intended berm and landscaping and the property, of course, across the street, and now it's not having the effect it should have. Is there a plan for that?
Yeah, there is. Okay. The plan is, first of all, they've made a personal commitment, Derek and Blake, to do that. That's number one, to the neighbors. Second of all, there's going to be a conservation easement, which hasn't been written yet, and that's subject to you approving the buffer plan that's been submitted. You may want revisions to it, I don't know, but it's pretty robust. That plan, and there could be, there will be a conservation easement there. I guess it would be in favor of the town of South Windsor. And that conservation easement, which is a buffer easement, it's really a area that there will be no commercial development, and it will be maintained, the earth and berm, the landscaping, and it will require them to continue to maintain it. So that will be in favor of the town, and that will be enforceable.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you. Mr. Mike.
Commissioner Foley.
Okay, a couple things. Michelle, so tonight, what's in front of us is basically just, we're only voting on changing from RR to
General
GC.
commercial. That is
So
the only thing.
the site plan-
You cannot condition a zone change on a site plan. So if your zone change is your zone change.
All right, so, all right, moving forward, is there any way, I mean, I've dealt with the family, with Pat and Lynn and the kid, the boys for forever. I mean, they're a top-notch, high-class company, but moving forward for the community, if this was to pass, can we put a caveat saying that, can we put restrictions saying that it cannot have car sales? It can't, like, can we restrict?
No, you cannot. You have to allow whatever uses are in the zone that you allow. If you allow a general commercial zone, you're saying general commercial uses can be proposed at that location. Now, the applicant could deed restrict their own property and say uses can't occur on it, but that's not something you could do.
Would your client be willing to deed restrict?
Give me 1 minute, please.
Mr. Chairman?
Vice Chair.
I'm sorry, Mr. Foley. I'm just contemplating that. I don't know what kind of use you would want to restrict in that area. You can't condition a zone change, as Ms. Light said, but that conservation easement that's going to be imposed covers 3.3 acres with the berm.
I understand it, but right now, our decision is only to make the change. So tomorrow
So if you're
they sell
talking
out.
about the interim between getting that conservation easement imposed,
Anything can happen.
yes, I mean,
I'm just,
a meteorite could fall on their business and the two sons could disappear, and highly unlikely. You have a business, I've never seen such support for a business that's proposing an application to change a residential zone to a commercial zone, particularly from the neighbors along King Street. So what could we do to make you comfortable that they are going to continue with the process that they've started?
I'm thinking, okay,
Okay.
What we don't want to see is some of the stuff that's in our regs. I don't care about the POCD. I'm talking about the stuff that's in this book, okay? So I'm just trying to
Okay.
protect the community. I'm thinking outside the box.
And we've been trying to think outside of the box through this whole process, because you can't condition a zone change. We'd be happy to if we could. But you do have a corridor still on Route 5 that you want to promote as your business uses. So I'm not sure it would even be in your best interest to start restricting commercial uses within the GC zone along that corridor. If you're looking to somehow just restrict what's on this area of the new zone change to, I don't know what you'd want to restrict it to, but you really, you can't do that through the zoning process. We can do it for you through the easement, and that is one way to ensure it'll never be a problem.
Let me ask a question.
What our clients are willing to do?
So the building gets put up in the back. I'm just throwing a hypothetical, okay? The buildings get put up in the back. The boys retire, they sell out. Here's this facility. People could do auto sales there. It could turn into many different things. This is what I'm trying to
with regard to the area of zone change we're pursuing now.
Correct.
Yes. Yeah, which is the area closest to the residences, too. And
Correct.
Derek and Blake just indicated that they're willing to talk to you about this. You know, restrict certain uses that may be offensive in the back from that list with some kind of deed restriction. I think they're willing to do something like that for the 4 acres that they're going to be using, or the 7.39 acres of the zone change. Correct. They're amenable to that within reason. There's not going to be a fast food restaurant back there, which is allowed use, and some other things. So
I didn't hear that.
they don't plan on having any fast food restaurant. They'd be amenable to that, for example. But take some of those things that may be offensive to the neighbors and take those off through deed restriction, and yet still could be used for a warehouse, for example, that building, and for storage, that type of stuff. But so there's not offensive.
Peter,
they're willing to do something like that.
Come closer.
Just when you're speaking, if you could, you're over here like this, and you come through a lot clearer if you're in front of the microphone. You can move the microphone a little, or...
We got it.
Okay, thank you.
So just to state for the record, Derek and Blake Brannon, who are the principals in this entity, members of it, they are amenable to discussing with the commission. We expected this to go to another night, to go discuss with the commission some kind of restriction through Attorney Pearson that would restrict the uses from that list that may be offensive, so that they can still operate, and there could be some other future use there which is reasonable. So that in the event they close this down when they retire, they're young guys, but when they retire, something like that. So they're amenable to doing that.
That's all I have.
It's complicated, but...
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wagner.
Yeah, let me build on that and a couple other things. I mean, I love the design. You know, I think the neighbors really appreciate the design. I'm a little worried about getting the cart before the horse here a little bit. Would it be, there's actually a number of agreements that were mentioned. One, of course, is the whole berm and easement, the design of the what will remain rural residential. And then there's the agreement on the driveway with the neighbors, which I don't think we've seen in writing. Would it be possible, and this is the right thing to do, and you're an attorney, so would it be possible to get these agreements in writing conditioned on the approval of the zoning? So we have the agreements in writing with the town to do the things that are being promised here that everyone wants to do, but condition it, you know, make sure that those are in writing before we approve the zone. And if that takes a couple months, okay. That's one question. Now the other, and maybe I'll let you answer that first.
Okay, if I may. We can certainly give you a draft conservation easement that would set out, you know, all the things that you've expressed concern about or questions, and some of the members of the public have raised, such as would it be possible to have access to King Street through that conservation easement once it's in place and the berm's in place? And the answer is no, it won't be possible. We can draft those agreements for you. We can draft the easement, which will indicate that the landscaping will be maintained, as will the infiltration basin on the Hartford trucking side of the berm. Those are the only activities that will be able to take place in that conservation easement. That's one document we could give you. We are not going to be able to, nor would we be willing to do it. It would be not far-sighted for this applicant to do. We're not going to impose it before there has been a change of zone that makes it worth precluding any possible future development, even residential, along King Street. Conservation easement does that. You impose that conservation easement. The only thing that can happen there in that whole 3.3 acres is a berm, landscaping, and that infiltration basin, and it has to be maintained in perpetuity. That means that driveway will be precluded from being used by that neighbor, but we can also draft an agreement for you to see which will explain exactly what rights that neighbor is giving up in that driveway, and we can do that for you. But again, the neighbor's not going to want, that's all a quid pro quo for really getting the zone change in place. There are reasons that we're doing this. So we're not going to file an conservation easement unless we know the property is going to be rezoned. But we'll get you the draft documents if that would make you more comfortable, and we can have all of those for the next meeting.
Okay, I'll have to think about that one. One possibility is that if, and again, things happen to people, things happen to everybody gets COVID or something, I guess if these things didn't ultimately take place on the unzoned, the part that didn't get rezoned, then we could always undo the zone change in the next meeting or something. So I guess we have some protection that way.
Well, I just might add to that, there's always the possibility for the commission to take it upon itself to rezone property. So if for some reason this was not going to happen, look, you're in a difficult situation from the standpoint that you can't condition a zone change.
Right.
But at the same time, if you deny this zone change, you've got a good business run by great people with a long history with this town who've made promises, worked with the neighborhood extensively, and if the zone change doesn't go through, you may have protected against these very hypothetical future possibilities, almost on the level of the comet hitting their business and wiping them out, so they're not going to go forward, and not file that, agree to build the berm, which they already have an application pending before you. They've already started that process, or apply that conservation easement. So you're balancing here something that we think we've made a very strong case, is very good for the community, and you have unusually strong neighborhood support, a residential neighborhood as well as the commercial neighbors for this, against a potential that really is highly unrealistic, that conservation easement will not get imposed and the berm will not be built or approved by you if you're so inclined.
But don't get me wrong, I really, really want to see this thing go through.
Okay.
So just so you know that.
We're trying to work this out so you're comfortable.
So
Believe me,
now,
we've worked at this for a long time to try and find a way to make it happen, but.
So, Michelle, you mentioned some issues regarding buffers, and we have a picture of a building that it looks like it's right up against the property line, or the zone line, I should say.
The conservation easement, maybe, no?
Along the easement
The conservation easement, but the buffer is required on each side of the zone line, right?
So on this doesn't follow, what they're showing here, the conservation easement, there would not be a buffer required there because buffers aren't required along frontages. So in this scenario, the only buffer required, if it were rezoned to general commercial, only buffer that would be required would be wherever it abuts residential physically, not across the street. So along the King Street frontage, there would not be a buffer requirement. If you look at your buffer regulations, it says it's not required along street frontages.
So north and south would need a buffer.
But nothing along King Street.
So
they're proposing,
that easement will be rural residential, right?
No, they're talking about rezoning that easement to general commercial.
The whole property?
Correct. This application is for the whole property.
Because I'm looking at on this drawing, there's a proposed zone change and it points to a dashed line, which also seems to be the boundary of the easement. So we're changing the whole thing.
Correct.
We're changing the whole thing to commercial. Okay, so I'm misinterpreting these little arrows on the drawing.
No, it is the whole thing is being proposed.
7.49 acres, 3.3 of which is the buffer easement conservation area, and 4 acres is to the east of that.
Okay, so the easement is the buffer in that case. Very good.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, the whole conservation easement is the buffer area. But we're proposing, whether or not it's required in the regulations or not, we're proposing the whole thing.
I guess the only concern I have too with that is the enforcement of it. I mean, when it's when it's a buffer requirement under zoning, there's a zoning enforcement procedure.
Right.
When you're putting under an easement and you're putting the town as the enforcer, I'm not quite sure how that's gonna work. So that's something that would have to be discussed.
Well, one thing is that only occurs, that buffer, with an approval from the commission, and that approval from the commission, you know.
But it's not a regulated buffer. It's because the zoning doesn't require it, is what I'm saying.
Well, it's a buffer that goes beyond that. And if it's going to be, if it's on our plan, I think it's enforceable.
That's the key.
Yeah.
The applicant for the zone change is going to come back to you if the zone change is approved for a site plan, and I think they'd need a special permit also to be able to develop.
No.
They don't, just straight site plan. No, not for the buffer, for the development of the site to be able to.
Excuse me.
Site plan. In any event.
One speaker, and speak into the microphone, please.
I apologize.
Thank you.
The applicant will have to come back to you if the zone change is approved, not only for that easement that's currently pending, the conservation, I'm sorry, for the berm in the conservation easement area that's pending, but they'll have to come back for a site plan for the development of the facility they would like to be able to build once they get the zone change. And that would include the designation of the 3.3 acres as a, if you want to call it the buffer to protect King Street, but that would be part of that application, and that would be enforceable in terms of any kind of site plan approval in the normal course of things. So that not only would you have the protection of the conservation easement, which the town as a whole would be the dominant party and have the right to enforce that, but also you'd be able to enforce it through your zoning procedures because it would also be part of your site plan approval should you approve it.
Okay, yes.
That one I could answer.
Let me just scan my notes. I think I'm done. Okay, rather than hold everybody else while I look through all my papers, I'll, at least for now,
Okay.
say thank you.
And just what I want to do is try and get through the commissioners so that if they have to go back and do anything, they have some feedback. So Commissioner Dexter?
Just a couple quick things from Michelle. Michelle, currently in place, we have a temporary and conditional permit, correct, with Hartford Truck?
There's a site plan approved at 95 John Fitch Boulevard, which is the Hartford Truck Building, and then adjacent on the property to the south is where you approved a 1 acre area of truck storage. So it's not on the same site as Hartford Truck, it's the adjacent property to it.
So there's nothing approved temporarily on this land we're talking about tonight?
No, there is. There's this, well, not on the zone change part of it. On the general commercial part of the land, there is.
Oh, okay.
But the zone change part, which is rural residential, there is not.
So nothing's happening on the rural residential land right now?
Currently.
Currently, okay.
Correct. The 50-foot or the big, tall, 12-foot mulch buffer they put
Right,
on
right.
is right at that zone line.
Okay, so it's right at the line there.
Yeah.
Just curious, with the RR regulations, how many homes could be built on King Street?
I didn't look at the front. I think Peter said 4 or 5, probably.
5?
You know,
Okay.
you also have duplex as a potential there. The Brannons did do a duplex on Maguire Road. They're the only other duplex in town, so that would be a potential. You know, your other non-residential uses, like I mentioned, were like a church or a daycare, those kinds of potential non-residential uses.
And I don't know, I'm just gonna ask it because I just wanna be sure I understand. We're putting through with CROG some changes to the industrial zone for warehouses, correct?
We haven't put anything specifically through, but we are.
Your microphone is off, Michelle.
Talking about it, right?
I'm sorry. We're talking about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because this is general commercial, are warehouses of a 45,000?
They would not be permitted in general commercial zones.
So is this 45,000 square foot building that I saw up there?
Referred to it as warehouse, I don't think you really meant that.
Well, it's storage for Hartford Truck.
So it's
Microphone.
not it's related to their business.
So it's not classified as a warehouse?
I'll let him answer that.
The proposal right now, and this is in very early stages, is for storage for their operation, the Hartford Truck Equipment upfitting business.
All right, you might just want to change your
Yep.
thing there.
Some things are currently stored outside, go inside, that type of thing.
Okay, that's it.
Okay, Commissioner Cavagnaro.
Thank you. I did have a clarification about the warehouse, but Commissioner Dexter cleared that up. So besides that, I have no further concerns. I will say, though, I will use my time to thank Hartford Trucking for making this an open process and design professionals for allowing residents of the neighborhood, business owners around the neighborhood, to put in their feedback for this. It seems a lot of people that were either against an application in the past by Hartford Trucking have really come forward and will be supporting this and do support the application. So I just want to put that out there and say thank you to Hartford Trucking to making this a more inclusive space for people in the neighborhood to share any concerns they may have. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I just want to summarize some of the concerns. With this property and this zone change could actually allow an applicant to put a building that is twice the size of what they're demonstrating on these plans. Peter, I'm not asking for any input yet, so.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. That building could also be 40 feet tall. So that's a big part of the neighbors' concerns. And I understand the applicant that we have before us today is not proposing that. But that's something that we have to keep in the back of our minds as we do a zone change like this. We can't just look at what's in front of us. We have to look at what could be used as of right on that property once we make that change. I noticed the signs for this application are in front of 45 John Fitch Boulevard, correct? Peter?
Yeah, they're in front of the frontage on Route 5. The subject property is
Okay.
11.4
Can
acres,
you
and they're
tell
also
me-
on King Street.
How that property up front fits into what is planned with Hartford Truck. And the big picture is, I believe at the last approval that we did, there were, this site would be made one lot. Am I correct in that, Peter?
It was the 11.43 acres, my understanding from our survey department, Larry Geisler and Barry Clark, is that this was acquired as one parcel, the 11.43 acres. What will have to happen, is my understanding, I think we've had conversations with Michelle and stuff, that this property very likely would be combined with Hartford Truck Equipment's 4 acres. Yes, they're nodding in the affirmative. So Derek and Blake are in agreement with combining the 95 John Fitch Boulevard, which is their 4-acre where their headquarters is, with this 11.43 acres, so it'll become one parcel.
Okay, now, just to make sure I understand, so 45 John Fitch Boulevard,
That's the old number. There used to be a smaller parcel.
will that be all part of that
Yeah,
same?
it's all part of the, it's actually was acquired as one parcel all the way out to King Street from
Okay, thank you.
11.43 acres. That's the old number that the town's used.
Has the fire marshal been made aware that that driveway would be surrendered or eliminated?
No, I don't believe he's looked at that.
Okay, I'm just wondering if he has any issues with that, with any equipment getting into any of the other buildings. Having looked at this, I believe the King Street driveway, the existing one, should be abandoned, making certain that no traffic issues are ever created now or in the future. I do understand that you're trying to appease the neighbor and his wishes, and I'm okay with that. But I would like to see documentation. I think the lawyer mentioned this, that when that tenant moves on, the driveway will be removed, and I would like to see it removed and returned back to landscaping. Does the applicant have an issue with that?
No, no problem.
Okay. I already talked about that, combining, yeah. Okay, that is everything that I had on my list. I do want to say, I looked at this pretty intensely this afternoon, and I visited the site, and I had a lot of concerns. A lot of those current concerns have been answered by the neighbors, by the applicant, and there is some comfort in there. I have the same other concerns, about the easement, conservation easement and stuff, and that stuff, I believe once you put it on the record, if it doesn't go forward, then we can take action, but I do think this is a step in the right direction. So with that, Commissioners, are there any other issues you want to bring forth before we continue this public hearing? Commissioner, yeah, okay. Would you like to step forward? Yeah.
I would just like to get some clarification because you've made some very good points, Mr. Chairman. We will, and again, Peter had said the same thing, we would be willing to draft some draft restrictions that you might find would make you more comfortable, knowing that the applicant would create restrictions in their deed on the property going forward with regard to future potential development. You were talking about height, and I'm not sure what other concerns in particular. Building height for that portion of the zone change. I mean, we could look at these things and get you some draft proposals for the next meeting. If there was anything else in particular, you did say height, and I think you might have said building size, but I'm not sure. That gets a little tricky because we haven't figured out exactly what we need yet.
I realize that. I just wanted to put on the record that we're aware of what size building could be there, and that's what generates a lot of the concern of the commissioners. And I believe that's some of the original concern from the neighbors previously.
Right. Well, you have our commitment to continue to work with you through the permitting process as we go forward with regard to those kinds of issues. But I'm sensing right now you're not necessarily looking for a particular deed restriction at this point.
Yeah, Commissioner Foley was just mentioning future uses. And I appreciate what the applicant said about possibly deed restricting some of those also. Okay, so
Thank you.
Commissioner Wagner.
Yeah, sorry. Again, I mean, maybe to alleviate some of these concerns, the right thing would be to do the site plan and the zone change kind of in the same day, or some version of a site plan that was minimal and included these features. Just a thought.
Yeah. Okay. So at this time, Michelle, do we have a tentative date for?
Your next meeting is the 25th, and that is dedicated to the housing moratorium for the evening, so we're not putting any applications on that night, so then it would be the first.
So February 8th.
8th would be a continued public hearing.
Okay.
date. Yep.
So at this time, I entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to our February 8th meeting.
I move we continue the public hearing to the February 8th meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Yay. Okay. Yeah, I would appreciate it if we could extend the meeting for till 10:30 if everybody could. If you do have to leave, you have to leave. I have no problem with that. But I would need a motion to extend the meeting till.
So moved. Do we send the meeting to?
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. We'll move into our regular meeting. Our first item is public participation. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on something that is not on our agenda? Briefly, we will entertain it now. And I do want to make note, that there has been a couple applications that have been added to our list of applications received tonight. One of them being a zoning text zoning amendment to put an immediate one-year moratorium for the proposal of new warehouse/distribution centers to allow zoning regulation changes, and the other Town of South Windsor request for renewal of 2-year temporary conditional permit for community building. Other than that, is there anything you'd like to discuss that is not on our agenda tonight?
Hi, John Holizak, Cody Circle. I'll keep it to less than 2 minutes. I've had occasion to look at other planning and zoning regulations in other area towns, and a lot of them have better protections for neighborhoods, for example. You know, in some towns, you don't get a 50-foot buffer where industrial abuts residential. You get 150 feet. And there's none of this, well, there should be 50 feet on the residential property, and the residential developer was supposed to do something. In other cases, there are limitations to the type of industry that can be right next to residential, and it's typically limited to light industrial. You can think of, for example, some of the machine shops that are, well, for example, on Governor's Highway, as an example of light industrial. All of this is kind of leading to a suggestion that I know there's talk in town of a freeze on new residential applications. Why not have a freeze on residential, commercial, and industrial? Have it for a shorter period than a year, maybe only 9 months is a number I've heard. And let's look through the planning and zoning regulations. Let's compare ourselves to other towns in Connecticut. Frankly, the wetlands regulations are at least 21 years old. They're missing important changes in state law. Those could, use it going over. I'm not sure whether this is the board that would take that action or the town council, so maybe we'll have a similar discussion with them, but I don't want to keep anybody any further, so that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on something that's not on the agenda tonight?
Good evening again, Wayne Both, 720 Governor's Highway. Thank you, Commissioners, for volunteering your time to serve on this commission. I just would like to also mention that I support the moratorium that would give you an opportunity to review and revise planning and zoning regulations to be current with the situation regarding warehouses in town. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else? And I hope there isn't going to be any duplication here.
evening again. Derek Butler from 596 Governor's Highway, South Windsor. I also would like to support the moratorium. And I wanted to ask a question also, just to get the correct process. How would one get a copy of a deed that shows transfer of title of Newberry Road?
Okay, just
pertains to the new application site plan 22-01P.
I believe any deeds and stuff would be through the town clerk. So, and
Mr. Butler,
generally this is.
If you want to contact me tomorrow, I can help you with that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay, moving right along, we'll go into our new business, application 21-41P, Evergreen Walk LLC. We'll turn to our town staff. Michelle, do you have anything to add on that?
No, you should have gotten an updated sheet in your packets. So if you were inclined to approve it, you would be taking the language that was given to tonight by Mr. Lamson, and then there was a suggestion of the affordable housing section that's on the other. So it would be the combination of the two, the language, Mr. Lamson's and the sheet.
Okay. I'll just turn to our town engineer. Jeff, do you have anything you want to add?
No, nothing on this
Okay.
application.
Thank you. Then at this time, commissioners, I'll open the floor. Would anybody like to start? Not hearing anybody. I voiced my concerns about the language. I understand there's the safeguards that were included. I just have a continued concern that those, the same way this applicant brought forth their changes, another applicant could do the same. So that's where I'm at. Would anybody like to make a motion, or?
I was just going to add my 2 cents.
Oh, please do.
Because I have it written down
And
and I'm
if you
ready.
could bring that microphone a little closer.
I can. Okay.
And maybe tilt
So,
it down a little.
I guess I am general plan weary. Changes, changes, changes. I'm weary of yet another change. I look at Unit 7C, all I see is, wetness. It just seems like it's a parcel of land that should just be left open space. That's just my opinion. I am concerned about 2 more kids in school. I don't care if it's 3, but I'm concerned. And I think they ought to just deed it over to the town as open space.
We do have an application in front of us. I believe we do have to act on this application tonight. Otherwise, it would be, I believe, a mandatory approval if we don't act on it.
No, actually, you closed your public hearing. You now have 65 days to take action, so you don't have to act on it tonight. You had to
Okay.
close your public hearing tonight, which you did.
Thank you.
I'm willing to make a motion if you want that.
Okay, sure.
I move that we approve application 21-41P, which is a Evergreen Walk zoning text amendment, and referring to the language that was presented to us on the January 3, 2022 letter from the applicant. with additional wording to add section 4.2.15A to E. At least 10% of the dwelling units deed restricted to rent or sell at prices that would make them affordable to persons or families earning 80% or less of the area median income as defined by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development for a period of not less than 40 years, 40. The Planning and Zoning Commission finds that the zone change is in conformance with the Town Plan of Conservation and Development. The effective date of the zone text amendment is January 30, 2022.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion. And Atif, I just want to make you aware, alternate commissioners, unless seated, cannot participate in discussions of applications. Okay, so thanks. Commissioners, any other discussion? Okay. At this time, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Cavagnaro,
Aye.
Commissioner Dexter,
Nay.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
Commissioner Foley,
Nay.
Commissioner LeBlanc,
Nay.
Commissioner Viteri,
Aye.
Chairman Pasaconis.
Nay. Okay, by my count, that's 3 in favor, 4 against. The motion fails. Okay. So at this point, Michelle, there's nothing more to do on that at this point, right? Okay. We have application 21-42P Evergreen Walk, which is the change to their general plan. I believe we still have to act on the application. Am I correct in that, Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, you can act on it, or the applicant can choose to withdraw it if you don't take action on it, since it's no longer a valid application.
Okay.
Withdraw it. You might as well take action on it, just so you have action on it.
Okay.
Since it's no longer.
Commissioners, I'd entertain a motion. Commissioner Foley, you have your light on?
Hell no.
Okay, if we don't act on it tonight, it'll be on our agenda, I guess, for next meeting. Okay, so.
Yes, I would appreciate an understanding, since the other motion failed.
To hear it, but, and don't forget your microphone. But as far as making decisions, they have to stand more or less alone for those purposes.
So I'm a little concerned about making a motion for something that can't actually happen, but can this go forward without the zone change?
The text amendment, no. So you could make a motion to deny it because there's no text supporting the application.
All right, I move we deny application 2142P.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion of denial, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Cavagnaro,
Nay.
Commissioner Dexter,
Aye.
Commissioner Wagner,
Aye.
Commissioner Foley,
Aye.
Commissioner LeBlanc,
Aye.
Commissioner Viteri,
Aye.
Chairman Pasiconis.
Aye. Okay, there's 6 in favor, 1 against. So the motion of denial passes. Okay, our next item of business is application 21-53P, Miller Heights Subdivision.
I'd like to make a motion to approve application 21-53P, Miller Heights Subdivision.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion?
There were some conditions that need to be included in the motion, right?
Do you have your?
There's a lot of paper here. Wow, that's a long one.
Before you go, Mike, condition 12 I think should have been in italics also.
Okay.
12? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Number 13.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 13, okay. All right, standard approval modifications for subdivisions and re-subdivisions. For application 21-53P, special exceptions 1 through 12 are standard exceptions. Number 13, the driveway easement for the shared driveway shall be shown on the plot plan. Number 14, the approved location of the house, garage, and driveway for the interior lot are an integral part of the special exception. If modifications are proposed subsequent to this approval, further approval from this commission may be required. Number 15, something about an oak tree needs to be preserved on the property, designated beforehand.
I don't have anything on my number
Okay.
15.
I'm just reading Kevin's notes here, sorry.
Oh.
Other than that,
On condition number 10, could you
Okay.
just read that one?
okay, condition number 10, the drainage assessment fee in the amount of $50 shall be submitted to this commission.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and
I continue to second it. Yeah.
and a second. Any further discussion?
Chair, we have a friendly amendment.
Okay, Commissioner
Number
Dexter?
16 would be a 20-foot conservation easement north, west, and south of Lot 1. North, west, and south
Thank you.
of Lot 1. Would you accept that? Yes? Okay.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion, a second, and a accepted friendly amendment. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we still have a few minutes. We have bonds? Yes. Okay, would somebody like to move the bonds?
All right, I'll do it. I move we approve the following bond reductions, and I'm going to read all 4 of them. 17-45P, Power Electric, erosion and sedimentation, a $2,000 bond, reduction by $2,000, leaving a balance of 0. Application 17-45P, Par Electric Stormwater Bond, $5,000, reduction $5,000, leaving a balance of 0. Application 19-39P, Aldi Erosion Sedimentation, $20,000 bond, $20,000 reduction, a balance of 0. And application 19-39P, Aldi Stormwater, $15,000 bond, reduction of $15,000 with a balance of 0.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, minutes. We can accept the minutes by consensus if everybody's in agreement. Agreed?
Agreed.
Okay. And just for the record, that's the minutes for November 23rd, November 30th, which was a special meeting, November 30th, public hearing and regular meetings, December 7th, and December 14th, 21, right? I see a 2012 there, but, okay. Old business, Michelle. How about correspondence? Microphone, please.
Sorry. We do want to, Open Space Task Force is looking for a member from the Planning and Zoning, so we do want to put forward a name. I think Chairman Pasconis, were you interested in serving on Open Space? We could put forward the name to Pat Botterin, who will get it on a council agenda.
Yeah, I had served on that before, and I'd be willing to serve again. Is there any other interest?
Yeah, you get it.
Okay.
And then just to note, you had other applications to be received. Application 2201 is 25 Talbot Lane site plan, and 2202 is the Hartford Truck landscape berm, in addition to the two you had mentioned earlier, just so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you have 4 applications tonight.
Awesome.
And that's it.
And then this application that came in today from Kathy Carrigan, 22-03P,
So that's an application for a moratorium, 1-year moratorium on warehouses. So it would go like any other text amendment application, so it's a planning and zoning application, yeah. Go through public hearing process, that kind of thing.
Okay. So if there's no other business, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
Motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.